The story started in the year 550 of the Maduk Kingdom, where the main character, Ramsay, and his father were talking. The father pointed to an area on the map and told him that this territory would be his from then on. The father, Hans Rugel, was a lowly baron with a tiny plot of land in the north of the Maduk Kingdom. The land Hans showed Ramsay was the farthest northern land, a desolate stretch with no inhabitants. Ramsay's eldest brother, Bal, ruled the Rugel domain. His older brother, Kun, was just an assistant, a backup for emergencies. And as the third son, Ramsay was just being neglected. In other words, he was just an inconvenient mouth to feed. Ramsay smiled at the news of hearing that they would receive the land and said that it made him a branch of the Rugel family. Hans agreed to it. Ramsay said that he should then change his last name to distinguish himself from the main family. He said that from then on he would go by Ramsay Bartlett. Hans heard this and asked, was that really all right? Ramsay wondered if it was too ironic to play pair and useless. He said that it was not great, but he understood and asked if he could at least get some startup funds. His mother gave him the bag of money, and Hans told him that he had prepared 1,000 rubellas. Ramsay mentally calculated that one loaf of bread cost 1 rubella and thought he would take whatever benefit he could get as the third son. His mother told him that she was sorry and asked Hans if that was all he wanted to discuss. Hans opened up, saying that as a father, he felt sorry for being able to do so little for him. Ramsay smiled and told him not to worry as he would leave in a week. He then left the house, saying he was off to the village. Outside the house, he thought to himself that he understood that this was how it must be. Because he was a reincarnator, his mental age was much older than 13. Before, he had been Shitaro Ikaruga, an ordinary Japanese guy working for a black company in the northern lands. One day, he had died in the most cliché way, getting hit by a truck. He realized he had reincarnated as Ramsay. Here, he had no ties to the nobility, and as a third son, inheriting the family was almost impossible. He could also try to become a retainer for another noble by marriage, but he chose to go to the land he had been given. He decided to cultivate the undeveloped land he had been granted and to create his own village. He was resolved to do this. Just then, his friend Dany came to say hi. Dany was the fourth son of the only inn in the village. Like Ramsay, he had an older brother and could not inherit, so they got along well. Ramsay also said hi and told him that he needed him to pick something up for him. He told him that he needed rye, beans, turnip seeds, an axe, a saw, cloth, and salt. Dany stopped him and asked him what he would even use that for, and if he was planning on going on a journey. Ramsay explained it was not like that, and he just got told to leave and was given some land so he would be living there. Dany was shocked by this. When Ramsay asked if he was okay, he shouted at him, saying he should have told him that sooner. Ramsay clarified that he just found out about this that day. Dany then asked a bunch of questions like where the territory was and what its size was. Ramsay answered all that he knew, and then Dany asked him if he had any plans. He said that he had not thought too deeply about it and asked him, did it not make him mad that they gave birth and threw them away when they were no longer needed? Dany was taken aback by this. Ramsay knew that just like him and Dany, there were countless useless people in this world. He offered his hand to him, saying that they would make those guys eat their words. Dany smiled and dabbed him, saying they would give it a shot. Ramsay was happy that he had an ally. Dany asked what he should do, and Ramsay asked him how many people in the village were in a similar situation to them. He replied that maybe there were 10 of them, both men and women. He told him to go talk to these people and tell them that they would build a new village together. Dany agreed, saying he would handle it. They bid farewell, and Ramsay said he now had to take care of his part too. Back at home, Ramsay and Hans were looking at books and papers, seeing all the information about the land. Hans gave him more books, telling him that he should also use this information. Ramsay knew it was crucial to gather information about the land ahead of time, especially the weather, as without a rain temperature chart, they could only guess from records of nearby villages. He knew that generally, the snow started piling up around mid-December, became permanent and began to melt at the end of February, disappearing completely by April. He wondered if it was about the same as Hakodate. Hans asked him if that information helped him, and Ramsay told him it did and asked if he could show him the map. Hans did so, and they both looked and discussed the boundaries of their territories. He pointed at the small river and asked if they could use it as a boundary. Hans said it was fine. Ramsay then asked whose territories bordered this land to the east, west, and north. Hans told him that to the west was Baron Boden. The Beverly Mountains marked the territory's border. To the east was the kingdom's direct territory, and the Tess River was the boundary. And to the north, there was Baron Hendrik, who oversaw the area, and there was a wall on the boundary. Ramsay thought about whether he would have enough timber and drinking water. He told Hans that he was worried about the soil, but he would just have to keep cultivating it patiently. He thanked Hans, saying it was helpful, and he would return to his room then. After leaving the office, Ramsay came to his barren and empty room. He sat on the bed and said it was time to say goodbye to this storage-like room. He thought to himself that he only had to carry clothes, a coat, a knife, and a blanket, and had hidden 500 rubellas in his pocket. He looked up and saw a spider web. He thought that he could not say this was a good environment, though it was nice to eat without working. Compared to his life as a corporate slave in a black company, it was like night and day. He stretched, thinking that it was up to Dany to gather people, and he needed to get the deed for the land from his father. He knew there was so much to do. Just then his door slammed open, and his brothers came, teasing him and saying that Ramsay was finally being disowned and leaving. They taunted him about this. Ramsay clarified, saying that he would live there because he had land. His brother laughed about this, saying there was no way he could live on such a crappy piece of land and said he was really naive. They saw Ramsay still smiling and got annoyed. The older brother Ball spat on him, saying he was frustrated and he just wished he would just hurry up and go die in that new territory. They both left his room and Ramsay cleaned himself. He said that in the old world there was a saying, better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of an ox. He looked out the window and saw a night sky filled with stars. He raised his hand, trying to reach for the stars. He knew that he had been given a second life and he wanted to take that chance. He would be the head of the chicken, not the tail of the ox, and with those hands he would carve out the new world. The next morning, Ramsay arrived at his land, ready to start his territory. He looked at the map to see the markings of his territory. He touched the ground and saw that it was very hard and brittle as he realized that tilling would be tough. He went to the mountains and found birch trees everywhere. He knew that he would not have any trouble with wood. He touched the soil there and saw that it was nice and fluffy. He saw that the soil on the mountain was better than the plains. He realized that it was best to establish the base at the foot of the mountain. He knew getting up early had been a good idea and wondered if he should get back to the village. The morning passed and the afternoon set in. Ramsay entered the village and he was feeling hungry as he had not eaten anything since morning. Just then he spotted a boy calling out to him. It was Roger, the lumberjack's youngest son. He ran up to him and was glad that he had found him. When Ramsay asked him why he was in such a hurry, he explained that Dany had been looking for him. He excitedly told him that he had heard from Dany that he was leaving this village. Ramsay clarified that he was not leaving the village, but more that he was being pushed out. Roger begged him to take him as his older brother bullied him for being fat and slow. Ramsay saw that it was the same for every household. He was happy to see more companions, but he could not afford to feed extra mouths. Roger explained that his family had been lumberjacks for generations, but his older brothers got all the logging rights. He then remembered that he had been thinking about setting up a base at the foot of the mountain and asked Roger if he could chop down the trees. He confirmed this, telling him to leave the wood to him. They both shook hands, and Ramsay welcomed him, and Roger said he was looking forward to it. After a while, they both arrived at a house where Dany and the other people he had gathered were waiting. Dany told Ramsay that he was late and asked him where he had been wandering. He told him that he had been scouting the territory. Dany then introduced the people he had gathered. Willie, the farmer's fifth son, and Eric, the carpenter's second son. Dany said that these two wanted to help Ramsay with his ambitions. Ramsay thanked both of them and asked why they had decided to join them. Willie said that he had no land left from his parents, so if he was going to cultivate, it did not matter where. Eric said that he did not have any special reason. He was leaving because he did not get along with his brother. Ramsay was taken aback by another sibling spat, but realized that was how it was. This village was poor and necessity bred discontent. In poverty, hearts and minds dulled and they lost compassion for others. Ramsay wanted to create a village that did not end up like that. But just then Eric clarified to Ramsay that they were not like him, as if they messed up they could always go back. Ramsay was taken aback by this, but he saw that he was right, they were not thrown out. When they thought something was off, they could just pack their bags and head back to the village anytime they wanted. But even then, it stung Ramsay, but he realized there was no use dwelling on it. He raised his hand and said they would build a new village with the 5 of them. They all agreed and raised their hands. Then, Ramsay said that he would announce their future plans. Dany and Eric teased him, calling him chief and esteemed lord. Ramsay told them that first, they needed a base house and to start cultivating the fields. He wanted Roger and Eric to handle the house and Willie and Dany to take care of the fields. Eric asked about the wood, and he told him that there were birch-like trees growing on the mountain. Eric said that if they were building a house, it would be nice to have some oak around. Ramsay said they would need to search the mountain for that. He asked Willie what crop he was good at growing. Willie told him that at home he used to grow beans, wheat, and garlic. He asked Willie if he could sneak some seeds away, and Willie said that as long as it was not too much, it should be fine. They would start by building a small house with birch and grow easy-to-cultivate rye and beans. For water, they would first look for a spring in the mountains, and if they could not find any, they would draw from the river. Ramsay apologized for the rush and said that they could start tomorrow. The others said they didn't mind, and Eric said he needed to prepare a bit first and told them to chop down a few trees. Dany left and said a traveling merchant had just arrived. Everyone came out, and Ramsay introduced himself and said he would be governing the northern side of the territory. The merchant's name was Slay. He introduced himself and thanked him for his kindness. He said that Ramsay was quite young, and Ramsay told him that he would be 13 that year. He said that he had heard from Dany about his needs and showed his cart where his goods were stored. He asked them what they needed. Ramsay thought about it and said he needed a year's worth of salt. He also said he needed nails, and Eric said that he would like 100 of them. They discussed more items, and after everything, the merchant said that the total came to about 1,200 rubelas. Ramsay was taken aback by this, as this was higher than he had expected. He had to prepare food and keep some funds for emergencies. He asked Slay to break down the costs for him. Slay told him that a year's worth of salt was 500 rubelas, nails were 3 rubelas each, totaling 300 rubelas, and the cloth was 400 rubelas. Ramsay wondered if this was a fair price, as he had never made such purchases in this world before, as he had been a noble's kid after all. Dany came to the rescue, saying that it was a bit high and he would have to pass on the cloth. He asked how about 700 rubelas for the salt and nails. Slay said that did not leave much profit for him. But when he saw the young kids very eager, he thought to himself that if he made a good impression now, they might become regular customers. He agreed to the deal, saying it was acceptable, and Ramsay thanked him, visibly happy to hear it. After a while, they both arrived at Willie's farm where his mom was working. She asked Willie where he had been wandering about, and when she saw Ramsay, she asked him who he was. He introduced himself, saying he was Ramsay Rugel, a friend of Willie. The mom heard Rugel and realized that he was the son of a lord. He asked her not to be formal and said that he actually had a favor to ask. He said that he would like to acquire some agricultural products from her. He asked her how much she could prepare, and she told him that if it was rye, she could manage 3 large bags, and for beans 1 large bag, and for garlic 2 small bags at most. He thanked her and asked how much it would be in total, and she told him that it came to 600, but she would like to settle on 500 rubelas for it. Ramsay made the payment in advance and she thanked him for it, saying she would hand the goods over to Willie. Ramsay left thinking he had covered the minimum preparations. At Ramsay's house, just before dawn, Ramsay was about to leave when his parents saw him off. He thanked them for raising him up to that point, and he would never forget their kindness. His mom asked him if he really intended to work hard in his territory and said that there was no need to leave so soon. He denied it, saying that he wanted to prepare as quickly as possible. He thought to himself that he did not dislike his parents, but as long as those brothers were around, he could not see himself staying in that house. His father said he understood and reluctantly gave him the deed for the territory as he had promised. Ramsay accepted it and thanked him very much. He told them to take care and left. After a while, he reached where Dany and the others were waiting, and Dany told him that he was late. Ramsay apologized, saying that he had gotten caught up with his parents. Willie showed him the food he had asked for, and Ramsay thanked him, thinking he felt secure for now, but he would need to buy more supplies soon. He had been able to buy everything cheaply that time thanks to his name, Rugel, but it would not be that easy from then on. He slapped himself to wake up and told his squad, "Let's depart." After arriving on the land, Ramsay planted a stick in the ground and said that this would be their base. Roger said he would go chop some wood, and Willie said he would check the soil around there. Dany also tried to think of something to do but was not able to. Ramsay told him that if he was free, then he needed a favor from him. He asked him if he could whip up a millstone for him. Dany was taken aback by this and asked if he was serious. Ramsay said he was serious, and he was in a hurry as they could not do without a millstone since they needed to eat the wheat. Dany was frustrated by this and left, agreeing to make the millstone. Willie saw him leaving and asked Ramsay what was up with him. He told him not to worry as he had just gone to scout for some stones. Willie told him that, as he had heard, the soil there was not great and the drainage looked bad. Ramsay agreed and said that he thought mixing in mountain soil would help. He asked Willie what he thought, and Willie agreed, saying that for then that was all they could do. He picked up a hoe and said he would pick the best spot and start tilling. Ramsay left Willie to it and went to the mountains to check on Rogers. He found him and asked how it was going. Rogers told him that things were going well and there were plenty of birch there, and further up there were beech and pine trees. Ramsay asked if they could increase the pine and birch while planting. He thought to himself that pine resin could be used for fuel, and if they could tap the birch for sap, they could trade it for a good price. Rogers told him that if they grew wild, they could manage planting them too. Ramsay got excited by this and told him that once they chopped down the trees around there, they would start planting to avoid landslides. He asked Rogers if he could even grow birch, and Rogers agreed. He helped Rogers cut down trees while Willie was busy with tilling and Dany with the millstone. After the day was about to end, everyone assembled, and Ramsay asked everyone if he should report that day's progress. Willie said that he had been tilling, but the soil was bad. He continued, saying that first, they needed to properly till the soil and mixing the mountain soil came after. Rogers said that the birch was coming in nicely and they had gathered nearly 30 logs. Dany apologized, saying he had not found anything. Ramsay wrapped up the report, thanked everyone and said, "Let's call it a day." He knew that everyone had a home to return to, so there was no need for them to camp out in that state. Everyone looked awkwardly at him, and Dany said that they would work hard to create a comfortable environment fast. Everyone left and Ramsay was left alone. He decided to prepare for camping. He knew he needed water and fire. He decided to draw water from the stream, but he did not have anything to carry it. When he thought about the campfire, he remembered that he did not know how to start one. It had been warm during the day, so he had forgotten, and surviving the night without warmth was just impossible. He also did not have a lighter. He started to panic, but after a while, he eventually started a campfire and wrapped himself in a blanket. He had to borrow some embers from Dany's place and barely avoided freezing to death. He had thought he had planned everything, but he had been totally unprepared, as there was still so much he needed for living there. Eventually, he drifted off to sleep. When the morning came, he was woken up by the sounds of his friends waking him up. They were sorry to see him in that state. Ramsay asked when he had fallen asleep. Eric thought to himself that he needed to build a house quickly for himself or he would die. Rogers thought that if they did not eat properly, they would not have any strength. Willie resolved to grow crops fast to fill their bellies. They all walked away thinking to themselves that they needed to set up a living environment as soon as possible. Ramsay said he had to get moving, too. He went to the river stream and drank water from there. He had just been thinking about food, but realized that he needed to make utensils first. He knew he could not make fine pottery, but he had learned the basics in elementary school, so he thought he should manage some simple earthenware. He found some clay and mixed it with water thoroughly, and then shaped it into a pot. He felt like he should let it dry for about 2 weeks at that stage, but he knew he could not afford to be slow. He decided to experiment and expected a few failures. He let them sunbathe for a while and then dried them near the campfire. When the time was right, he tossed it into the fire. After all that, he got an ugly pot. He was disappointed by it, but he knew he had not let it dry or bake long enough. He also needed to keep an eye on the fire's temperature while making it. He tested it and was glad that at least he could fill it with water. He put the pot above the campfire and added salt, beans, and thinly sliced garlic. He made a garlic bean salt soup. He wondered if that was even worthy of being called cooking. When he was about to dig into the food, he realized that he had no cutlery. He decided to just go for it and drank it straight from the pot. He was satisfied with the food, wondering who knew plain boiled beans could taste that good. After finishing it, he decided to get back into making pots. He made a few ugly pots and cups. He said that practicality was more important than artistry, and even if it was a bit rough, if it worked, then it was good enough. Time passed and it was evening then. Ramsay realized that making pottery was a full-day job and thought he would have to try different things. Just then, Willie called him, saying everyone had gathered. Ramsay told him he was on his way, and when he arrived, he asked everyone where Dany was, as he had not shown up that day. Rogers told him that Dany was super excited about finding the best stone. Ramsay cried hearing this, thinking he was really putting effort into making the stone mill. Eric showed him the small bed he had made for him. Ramsay was very excited to see that and thanked Eric. Rogers commented that it was really just a roof and floor, but Willie said that it was better than nothing. At night, when everyone had left, Ramsay cleaned up everything and was ready to sleep. He had thrown together a makeshift stove, but he really wanted to build it solidly with bricks. He decided to make bricks with clay the next day. He lay down on his bed, saying that just having a roof and floor brought so much relief to him. He drifted off to sleep, thinking he might sleep really well that night. The next morning, Dany came with others, greeting Ramsay and telling him that he had brought what he had asked for and he would show it later. He gathered everyone and said, "Let's get pumped and start today." Eric asked him why he was the one in charge. Ramsay told them to split into carpentry and farming teams and thanked everyone for that day. Eric and Rogers took care of the carpentry work while Willie and Dany took care of farming. Ramsay thought to himself that building their shelter was an urgent task, and they aimed to plant rye by mid-April. He wanted to expand the fields as much as he could in the next 2 weeks and thought that if they all worked together, they could totally do it. After a while, Dany came and told everyone to give a shot to his handmade stone mill. Roger said he was voting for it to succeed, but Eric said he was voting for it not to work properly, and Willie agreed. Dany told everyone not to make bets without permission. Ramsay said it at least looked decent, and Dany told him not to just say it looked nice and to put some rye in and try grinding. They tried it and saw that something was not right. They wondered if it was actually working. After opening it, they saw that it was not grinding right and the efficiency was not great. Ramsay then told Dany that the stone mill had grooves and showed him how it was supposed to be by drawing it on the sand. Dany said it was kind of a hassle and it would take a bit longer to finish. The rest of the guys wondered who the winner was then. Roger said it did grind, so he won. They all discussed and talked among themselves, and Ramsay looked at them happily, thinking they were making gradual progress and thus their Bartlett territory's real development was about to begin. Time passed, and it had now been 2 weeks since Ramsay moved into the territory. He noted that the development was going well, and it was really starting to feel like a village there. He said that the increase in allies was a major factor. 3 new people had joined Ramsay in his quest. Henry, a 15-year-old who was sociable and loved to draw, Gordon, a 19-year-old who had a strong sense of justice and was very caring, and Charlie, a 12-year-old who was younger than Ramsay, a bit timid, and had a weak body. All 3 of them were farmers' kids, so the fields were expanding rapidly. Ramsay noted that it was becoming an all-boys village, but they had improved the mill to grind fine flour now. At that time, bread and dumplings were their main food. Dany had packed up and started living in the village too. Ramsay got annoyed by it at night because of his snoring, but he was happy to see his territory develop. The next day, Ramsay told everyone that it was finally the seed planting day. He continued, saying that Eric was finishing up the house, so they would divide the work among the 7 of them and get it done. Willie informed everyone to make sure to cover the seeds well. The planting was 70% rye, 30% beans and garlic. He asked Willie if they could finish this in 1 day, and he told Ramsay that if they finished this within 5 days, that would be good enough. After a while, Henry said he wanted a girlfriend. He told Dany to introduce him to a girl. Dany asked him what about the girl he was introduced to before, and he told him that she was marrying his brother. He said that he thought once he had a house and fields, he could get married. Dany joked, saying that he now had fields but no house. Henry laughed at this, and Ramsay noticed that the lack of women was a problem, as without them their territory could not grow. Dany asked Willie if he wanted a girlfriend too, and Willie told him that he already had a fiancée. Everyone was shocked to hear this. Dany and Henry asked him if he was serious and who she was. Willie told them that she was Kathy from Peter's place. Dany got frustrated hearing this, saying he was eyeing her. Henry asked if she was cute, and Willie told him that she was the type you just wanted to protect. This banter continued for a bit. Eric came back and tried to say something but stopped and asked where the others went. Ramsay said they went back to Rugel village to find their dream. Eric was confused by this. A few days later, Ramsay told everyone that planting was done, so they would explore the mountains together that day. He told everyone that they would head up the mountain in intervals, aiming for the top to find wild strawberries and mountain vegetables, and they were rolling out to search for spring water from the melted snow. Dany decided to make it a race, saying whoever reached the top first won. Ramsay tried to stop him, but Eric joined Dany, saying he was known as Rugel Village's sewer rat, and so he would not lose in speed. Gordon commented from the back, asking if that was supposed to be a compliment. Dany replied back to Eric, saying he was known as Dany the Skirt Lifter, and he would not lose in speed. Gordon again commented, asking if that was a compliment. Dany fired back at Gordon, telling him to shut up, as he was the only one who had a girlfriend. Eric joined him, saying that they were talking about the fun stuff without him. Gordon tried to run away and get ahead first. Dany tried to stop him, and all 3 of them ran ahead up the mountain. Roger saw that everyone was so fast and was unable to follow them. After a while, Ramsay asked everyone if they found the spring water, and Dany and Eric looked away in embarrassment. Willie and Gordon told him that they found several spots with berries growing, but no spring water. Ramsay realized that it was not easy to find. Just then, Charlie came to him, telling him that he heard the sound of water. He took everyone where he found it. They were almost at the base of the mountain, and Henry wondered if the water was this close. After listening for a while, they heard the sound of water. Dany wondered how they did not notice it, and Gordon told him that it was because they were making so much noise. After following the sound, they finally found the spring water. Ramsay wondered how they would get it to the base. If they had bamboo, they could have used it for a waterway, but he had not seen any around there. He asked everyone if they had rope or something, and they all denied it. Ramsay then decided that they would have to use brute force and create a path from the spring to the base. He planned that first, one person would descend to the spot where they could see the base. Henry decided to do it. Next, another person would go down and stop where they could see the first one. Gordon decided to do this. They repeated this process, and finally, Ramsay would connect everyone with a line. Then they would follow that line and trample down the path. He told everyone to clear out any pesky weeds to make it easier to move. With this, they could make a round trip from the base to the spring in 5 minutes. Ramsay said that securing the water source was a success. After a few days, Dany was walking in Rugel village, disappointed. Eric met him and Dany asked him how it was going. They both were disappointed that they had another day of failing at flirting, and Dany said he wanted a girlfriend too. Eric said that searching for a girl in that tiny village had its limits and suggested that they should head to another village. He realized that they would probably get weird looks. Dany told him that they should wrap things up there now. After walking for a while, they heard a noise. It was Ramsay's elder brother, Paul, who was asking his worker what his idiot brother was up to and why he hadn't ended himself. Dany saw this happening and recognized Paul as Ramsay's brother. Paul's workers told him that things with Ramsay's village were going well. They had fewer than 10 people helping him, and they were all third or fourth sons who could not inherit their family. Paul got frustrated hearing this, saying Ramsay moved into his territory without permission, and he swore that he would end him. Eric told Dany that Ramsay officially got land from his father, and that was what was bothering Paul. The worker asked Paul what they were supposed to do about it, and Paul said he should just burn the village down. Eric and Dany were shocked to hear this. They rushed towards Ramsay to tell him about this. Ramsay welcomed them, telling them that he was making a map of the area with Henry and his drawing skills were a huge help. Dany told him that it was not the time for that. Ramsay asked them if something had happened, and they both told him what they had heard. Ramsay realized that Paul was planning to burn the village and said that his idiot brother only knew how to stir up trouble. Eric asked him what they were going to do if they really attacked them. Ramsay said he would think about it. Eric said they could not just sit around, but Ramsay tried to reassure them, saying it was fine and went back to working on the map. Dany still felt unsure about this. After a while, Willie came to Ramsay saying he wanted to grow grapes. He asked him if they could grow them around there, and Willie told him that he did not see why not, as grapes were pretty resilient even in bad soil. Gordon told them that he used to grow them at home, so he could help out. Henry said that he definitely wanted to drink some wine, and Ramsay said they could keep wine for a long time too. He said they would prepare a vineyard then, and everyone started to plan. Dany and Eric came with uneasiness on their faces. Ramsay saw this and asked everyone to take care of the rest of it. Gordon and Charlie said they would handle it. Ramsay left them and went to Dany and Eric, telling them he was busy making plans. Dany said he knew but asked about Paul. Ramsay told him that he thought it all would work out somehow. Dany was shocked to hear this, and before he could say anything, Ramsay left, saying they would talk again. A few days later, Eric and Dany were back in the village, still unable to pick any girls. Eric said they still had not solved the problem with Paul and wondered what Ramsay was planning. Dany wondered if the territory was really going to burn and said they would go back to square one. Eric got annoyed by this and grabbed his shirt, telling him not to mess with him as he was the one who got them all riled up, so he could not think of going back alone. Dany asked what the deal was with all this and what he wanted him to do. Eric got more annoyed by this, punched Dany in the face and told him to wake up. Dany smiled, wiped his face, and kicked Eric in the stomach, saying that was rich coming from him. The crowd saw that a fight was happening and they surrounded them. Dany told Eric to let him go and Eric told him to apologize first. The crowd was cheering for them to fight. Just then, Paul and his workers were walking nearby when they saw the crowd assembled and asked them what the noise was all about. Eric won the fight and left Dany lying on the ground. Paul saw Dany and recognized him. He told his worker to take him with them. The workers lifted Dany and took him to their base. Dany woke up, still hurt from his fight with Eric. He wondered where he was. He saw that he was in a storage shed and Rugel's mansion was outside. He realized that he was in Paul's playground. Just then, Paul came and sat near Dany, asking him what he was doing there. Dany stayed silent, and Paul told him to answer him, saying he was not part of the village anymore, and he knew that he had been hanging out with Ramsay. Dany denied it, shocking Paul and laughing, saying he could not stand that boring village life. He told him that he was going back to his village, and introduced himself as Dany from Rugel. Paul laughed at this and Dany continued, asking who wanted to deal with that dull land development. Paul asked Dany to join them. His workers chimed in, saying that Paul's place was the best and they could drink good booze and meet plenty of beautiful women. Dany got excited hearing this, saying it would be great. Paul smiled and thought to himself that he had found a crack in Ramsay's camp, and they had to take advantage of this. He offered his hand to Dany, saying it was a deal and he would be looking forward to working with him. Dany shook his hand, agreeing to the deal. After a few days, Dany was enjoying booze and women and said this was the life. He said that drinking with cute girls in the daytime was the best. Paul looked at him and said it was time to crush Ramsay and his gang. The workers asked if it was finally the time and if they were ready to follow Paul. Dany told Paul that it was too early and said if they were going to do it, they might as well wait until autumn. Paul was confused by this, asking what he meant and if he was thinking of showing them mercy. Dany denied it, saying that they were working hard planting wheat and beans right then, so it was better to wait for the harvest and take it all at once. Paul agreed to this, saying they would wait until autumn, and until then he would get ready to smash them. His workers were excited to hear this. Back in Ramsay's territory, Roger approached Ramsay and he asked him if there was a problem. Roger told him that it was not like that, but he had not seen Dany lately and wondered what happened to him. Ramsay tried to cover up, saying he was busy charming girls and he would not worry too much about it. Roger laughed at this while Eric looked at them worryingly. Eric approached Ramsay about to tell him something, but Ramsay stopped him, telling him it was fine as he was already thinking of the next move. He said they would go meet Baron Hendrik. He told them he was heading a little north. Everyone was surprised to hear this. Charlie asked if the north was the territory of Baron Hendrik. Ramsay confirmed this, saying that he planned to sell any wood not needed for the village, and the largest town around there was Hendos, the Baron's capital. He had already put up logs on the cart and was ready to go. Eric asked him if this was the next move he had mentioned before, and Ramsay confirmed this. He asked him if he was going to the town, could he pick up some nails too. Ramsay said he would, along with some rye and salt. It took about half a day to get to Hendos, so he predicted he should be back by the next day. Kathy, who was engaged to Willie, was also there, and Ramsay told her that he was counting on her to handle everyone's meals for a bit. She understood and he set off. After a few grueling hours, he thought to himself that pulling the cart alone was tougher than he had thought, and his spirit was wavering. After a while, he finally saw the town of Hendos. He had spent double the time he was expecting walking there, as he realized coming alone was a mistake and he should have asked for help. As he approached the town, soldiers stopped him and asked him what he wanted. They saw that he was from a lumberyard. Ramsay told them that it was his first time there and asked where the shop that bought lumber was. The soldier happily told him to just go through the gate and take a left. He thanked him, and as the soldier opened the gate for him, they advised him not to be shocked. As Ramsay saw the town, he was shocked to see such a lively place and said it was no surprise that it was the Baron's capital. He looked for the lumber store and finally found it. When he arrived there, the store owner greeted him and saw that he had come to sell some wood. He inspected the wood and said the quality and quantity looked good. He told him that he could offer him 1,000 rubara. Ramsay thought about it and asked for more, saying it was a hassle to bring this all the way there and it was in great condition. The owner thought about it and asked what about 1,200 rubara, saying that was his limit. Ramsay agreed to the amount and the owner gave him a bag filled with rubara. Ramsay thanked him and left, thinking about what was next. He arrived at a seamstress and said he would like to have a suit made. The woman there asked what his requests were, and he told her that he wanted a decent outfit to meet the Lord without breaking the bank. The seamstress understood this, telling him that she would make it out of the cheapest linen for 200 rubara. Ramsay agreed to it and she took his measurements for the suit. He asked her how long it would take to finish, and she told him he could expect it in about 3 days. He left the shop and headed to Baron Hendrik's residence. He told the guard outside the place that he was a messenger for Baron Hans Ruggel, and his lord wished to meet with Baron Hendrik. The guard heard this and told him to wait a moment as they went inside. After a while they came back, apologizing for the wait and telling him that their lord was quite busy and would have a little time in 10 days and asked if that was acceptable. Ramsay agreed to this, saying his lord would be pleased. He left there happily, thinking he had got the right outfit for meeting the Baron and secured the appointment. Now he just needed to buy the necessary items. After buying nails, rye, and salt, he packed them in his cart and ready to leave. He saw that it was already dark, and he could not afford to waste money or stay overnight in the town. He decided to tough it out and head back in the night. Ramsay arrived back in his village, and Gordon asked him if he was okay, as he had taken quite a while. Ramsay told him that he had managed and that he had done the prep work. He said that next, in 10 days, he would finally meet Baron Hendrik. Gordon apologized for bothering him right after he got back and told him that yesterday, when he had passed through the Rugel village, he saw Dany with his brother Paul. He said he did not want to think about it but asked if Dany could have betrayed them. Ramsay smiled, saying he needed to tell everyone. He told everyone something, and the scene shifted to June 25th, the day Ramsay was supposed to meet the Baron. Rogers was with him, and he was surprised to see that Hendo's was such a big city. He thanked Ramsay for bringing him there. Ramsay told him that he wanted to sell some firewood too, so his help was a lifesaver. He told him that they would explore the city after they finished their business, so first, they would sell this lumber. After arriving at the shop, the owner recognized Ramsay from before and saw that he had brought a lot more that day. Ramsay told him that he had brought it in pairs this time. The owner said he would set the price quickly and asked them to wait for a moment. Rogers told Ramsay that he was sure they would get a good price. After seeing the lumber and thinking about it, the owner told them that with this, 2,500 rubera was about the best he could do. Rogers was shocked to hear this and said that was way too low. The owner apologized, saying they had an abundance of birch and he would offer them 2,700, and if that was not good, they should try elsewhere. Ramsay agreed to this deal and sold the wood. Rogers was disappointed with this, thinking he could get 3,000 rubera. Ramsay said it could not be helped and they should leave the cart there and move on. They both arrived at the seamstress shop where she welcomed Ramsay and told him his suit was ready. Ramsay wore the suit and the seamstress asked him what he thought. He told her that it fit perfectly. Rogers also complimented him, saying he looked great. Ramsay thanked him, saying that in this outfit he should be fine meeting the Baron. He asked, shall they go? After a while, they arrived at the Baron's place. He told the guards that he was Hans Rugel and he had come as his father's representative. He requested an audience with Baron Hendrik. The soldier greeted Ramsay as Lord and asked him to wait a moment. Rogers remembered that Ramsay was also a noble. After a while, they entered the palace, where a maid welcomed them, thanking them for their patience and saying she would show them the way. They both followed the maid, and Rogers was in awe of the beauty of the palace. The maid showed them the room and asked them to come in. After they entered the room and sat there, the maid left, telling them to wait there for a moment. Rogers was still in awe, but this time telling Ramsay that it was an incredible mansion. Ramsay agreed, saying this was the Baron's residence that governed the area, and that was exactly why he had come. If he could gain Baron Hendrik's assistance. But before he could complete his sentence, Baron Hendrik entered the room with a huge presence. He apologized to Ramsay for keeping him waiting. Ramsay bowed down, telling him he did not mind. He raised his head and saw Baron Hendrik. He wondered if he would truly gain the Baron's support. Ramsay told the Baron that it was truly an honor to meet him and introduced himself as Ramsay Rugel, son of Hans Rugel. The Baron welcomed Ramsay, introducing himself as Daryl von Hendrik, ruler of that territory. He told him to have a seat and asked him what was on his mind. Ramsay sat down and tried to remember the negotiations from his past life. He knew he had to behave appropriately with his superior and had to steer the negotiation wisely. The maid came into the room and served them wine. The Baron asked if he enjoyed wine and told him to feel free to indulge. Ramsay thanked him but denied his offer, saying he seemed quite busy, so he would dive straight into the main topic. He handed the Baron's butler an official paper. The butler said he would take care of it. He opened it and gave it to the Baron. The Baron read it and after a while understood that Ramsay was Lord Rugel's third son and had been granted the Northern Territory. The Baron said he had come there expecting more and asked if it was just that Ramsay wanted to work as his retainer because he could not manage the wasteland. Ramsay denied it, saying that while it was an enticing offer, he had chosen a different path. He signaled Rogers, who handed him the bag of money they had received when they sold the lumber. He opened it, showed the money they had, and told the Baron that as per that letter, he had received land and made it his territory, and he had also changed his surname to Bartlett. He told the Baron that he wished to be added to his protection. They both looked at each other, and the Baron said it was interesting. He told Ramsay that he would recognize him as Sir Ramsay Bartlett, but entering his protection came at a cost, and asked if that was acceptable. Ramsay agreed, and the Baron asked the size of his village. Ramsay told him that it was not quite a village, as it was just a settlement of about 10 people. The Baron told him that they would pay 30,000 rubella to the Hendrik family each year, and starting next year was fine. Ramsay was shocked to hear this as he calculated he had to save 2,500 rubella each month. At that time, the only resources they had were wheat and timber, but the land's trees were limited, and the pace of planting could not keep up. Plus, there was a manpower shortage. He wondered if the Baron could lower the tax a bit, but before he could even ask, the Baron made himself clear, saying that not a single coin would be decreased. Ramsay sighed, thinking that desperate times called for desperate measures. He told the Baron he accepted those conditions. The Baron told him that it was a wise decision. His butler gave him a paper, and he started writing the official order, asking if that was all he wanted. Ramsay denied it, saying he wanted one more thing. He told the Baron to relay to Lord Rugel that they would not interfere. The Baron was surprised to hear this. Ramsay clarified that he had been officially granted land by his father, but the eldest and second sons of House Rugel were displeased, and they supposedly planned to set fires at an opportune moment. The Baron understood this, saying it was not ideal for them to see a drop in tax revenue and told him that he would prepare a letter immediately. Ramsay said he would need a copy as well, just in case anyone dared to invade his territory. He wanted to make it clear that if they took down the invader, they would not be held accountable. The Baron understood this and told Ramsay that he would tell them not to invade, as breaking that command warranted severe punishment. He signed the letter and gave it to Ramsay, saying he would notify Lord Rugel himself. Ramsay told him he was most grateful and took his leave. He and Rogers left the palace and the Baron watched them from his window. He asked his butler Anthony what he thought about this. He said that to think such a small sum could sway them, it was laughable. The Baron told him not to be so hard on them as they were just desperate to survive. He said that a noble had to possess the capacity to bear such things. He told Anthony that his loyalty to their house was commendable, but sometimes it went too far. Anthony apologized, saying that an increase in tax revenue was certainly welcome. The Baron agreed, saying if signing a few letters netted 30,000 rubella, it was not a bad deal. He said he did not expect much and wished Ramsay the best. After leaving the palace, Rogers said that he was starving. Ramsay told him that as a thank you for keeping him company, he would treat him. Rogers was very happy to hear this and started to look around for food, saying he wanted the skewers, soup, and bread. Ramsay bought them, and as Rogers started to eat, he warned him not to choke. While eating, Ramsay saw that a weak child was looking at them. Rogers asked him what was wrong, and when he saw what Ramsay was seeing, he also got sad. He asked him if they could do something. Ramsay said he really wanted to help, but he could not. Ramsay approached the child and asked if his stomach was shrinking. The child nodded, and Rogers gave him his soup. The child looked at him confused, and Rogers told him that it was super tasty, so he should eat while it was warm. The child started drinking the soup, and Ramsay thought to himself that for Rogers the glutton to go this far was a lot, but even if they satisfied hunger here, it would not solve the root issue. Ramsay asked the child if there were many people like him in that town. The child nodded, and Ramsay thought about it. He asked Rogers if he wanted to help them and said he could lend a hand to save those kids. Rogers agreed, saying he would do anything to help. Ramsay then decided something and told Rogers to gather people in similar situations around the lumber yard, and he would go shopping. Rogers went around the different parts of the town with the kid, collecting people who did not have homes, jobs, or anything to eat. Ramsay went to the shop and bought some stuff. After a while, Ramsay arrived at the lumber yard and saw a crowd there. He met Rogers and told him good job as he had gathered quite a crowd. Rogers said that just showed how many people were in need. Ramsay knew that in the shadows of that rich city of Hendos, there were many suffering, hungry people with no one to reach out to them. He thought that if they welcomed them as citizens of the Bartlett territory, they could save them all together. He shouted, asking everyone to listen up. He introduced himself as Ramsay Bartlett and said that he was the Lord of Bartlett Barony, south of the Hendrick territory. The crowd was shocked to hear this. He told them that his territory was chronically short on people and told them that if they cooperated, he promised that they would have plenty of food. The crowd started to discuss among themselves. A woman raised her hand and asked what exactly they needed to do. Ramsay explained to them that if they worked honestly in Bartlett, got married and built a family, and just lived their lives to the fullest, that would contribute to the territory's development. The woman asked if that was all. Ramsay told them that in the future they would have to pay some taxes, but at that time he needed their help building the village. An old man came forward and said they did not need an old man like him. Ramsay looked at him and asked his name. The old man said his name was Archbold. He showed his leg and told him that he had a bad leg, so he might not be able to help with the development. Ramsay wondered what had happened to his leg. He asked Archbold if he had any martial skill. Archbold was surprised by this, saying he understood him well and told him that he used to be quite the mercenary back in the day. Ramsay saw the scar on his knee and said that he must have been a valiant warrior. He told him that there were no fighters left in his territory and asked him to train everyone there. Archbold said he was honored, and if his old body could help, he would be glad to assist. Ramsay thanked him and told everyone that even if they were not suited for manual labor, everyone had their own role and jobs. He said that those who wanted to join should come to him or Rogers. A woman raised her hand, saying she would go. Slowly, everyone agreed, and Ramsay started to make a list of them. After a while, he saw that there were 73 people. He told Rogers that they would meet early the next morning and set off right away, so they should arrive by night. Rogers told him that they had kids and the elderly, so they needed to be careful not to overexert anyone. Ramsay told him that he would head back first. Rogers was taken aback by this. He explained that he needed to talk to everyone in the village first because if he suddenly returned with a crowd, it would create chaos. Rogers agreed and stayed back sad. Ramsay told him that he was counting on him, and Rogers said he would do his best. Ramsay thought to himself that a chance to grow the village had come, but wondered how he should explain this to everyone. It was now the 26th of June, and Ramsay returned to the village. Willie welcomed him back, and Ramsay asked him to gather everyone for him. He told everyone that he had been recognized as a viscount by Baron Hendrik during this visit, so the Bartlett territory was now under the Baron's protection. Henry and Eric were excited to hear this. He said that he had also heard that Paul and his group were planning an attack. Henry asked if it was about the incident the other day, and Eric said it was a hassle. Ramsay told them that it had been taken care of, as a letter from the Baron to Lord Rugel was on the way, forbidding any interference there, and if they broke that, they would face severe punishment, so there were no worries. Eric was excited to hear this, and Gordon saw that Eric had been especially worried about this. He told them that there was some bad news, as in return for the Baron's protection, they would pay 30,000 rubera each year. Everyone was shocked and anxious upon hearing this. Ramsay tried to calm them down, saying that in Rugel's territory it had been double at 60,000 rubera, and it was lower than last year, and they had been exempt this year, so they all could pull together. He told them that there was one more thing, though it was not entirely bad. Eric asked him what was with the hesitation, and Willie told him to spit it out already. Ramsay told them that a multitude of people were coming into this domain. Everyone was confused by this. He explained to them what had happened, and Willie said that Roger and Ramsay had been charmed by those beggars. Henry and Gordon were a bit skeptical about it. Ramsay said that he intended to pay everyone fairly afterwards and asked if that wasn't good. Henry told him that it was a good deed, while Willie was happy that the village would be bustling. Eric was excited that there would be girls. Ramsay cried that everyone was in support of this. Gordon put his hand on his shoulder and told him that if that was the case, they needed to prepare to welcome them and they should divide up the roles. Kathy said she would prepare the meals and Ramsay told her he would help her. He said that since everyone would be hungry, they should make rye porridge to avoid shocking their stomachs. Willie said he would take care of the fields, and Henry said he would fetch more spring water than usual. Charlie wondered what he should do, and Gordon said that since there would be more people, they should make daily necessities like dishes and spoons. Eric said he would stick to carpentry as usual, but he would make sure there was bedding ready. Ramsay asked him if they had built a few houses for everyone to live in, and Eric told him that they were not finished yet, but with more hands they could speed it up. Willie asked Ramsay when Roger and the others would show up, and he told him that they would head out early, so they should arrive by evening or maybe night. Charlie and Gordon were unable to make properly shaped utensils, so Kathy decided to help them. It was now night, and Henry tried to look for them but saw no sign of anyone coming. Ramsay wondered if they had gotten lost in the dark and if they should go meet them. Gordon and Eric volunteered to come. They searched for them and Eric asked if they were really coming. They suddenly heard some sound and saw Roger with people behind him. Roger waved at them and Ramsay said that he was late so he had been worried. Roger said that the cart had been very heavy and asked Eric to switch with him, but Eric was busy flirting with a woman, asking her if she was all right and welcoming her to his territory. Gordon scolded Eric while Ramsay asked about those feeling unwell or injured. Roger told him that they were good. He thanked everyone for their hard work on the long journey and told them that the village was just ahead, so they should hold on a little longer. The scene shifted to the 1st of July at the Rugel family's house, where Hans had called his eldest son Paul. He came with his sibling and asked why he had been called, and Hans showed him the letter, telling him to read it. Paul saw that the letter had the seal of the Hendrik family. He was shocked to read the letter. It stated that the Hendrik family recognized Ramsay Bartlett as a viscount and forbade anyone from harming this territory and its people. Paul got angry at this, asking Hans what this was and said they should protest it. Hans told him not to be foolish and asked what he intended to protest about. Paul said that Ramsay was taking the territory without permission, and Hans told him that he had officially ceded it, as he had merely handed over unused land. Paul got frustrated by this and left, as his sibling chased after him. Hans sighed at this but was glad to see that Ramsay was doing well. He realized that when Ramsay had asked for the land transfer document back then, it had been preparation for this moment. Even if he was his child, he was astonished by his foresight. He went to inform Helena, his wife, about this. Paul was at his place drinking, angry that he had been so close to storming in on Ramsay and was ready to crush everything in his path. His younger brother tried to calm him down, but he told him to shut up and said they all should figure out what to do about those guys. His brother and his worker left him alone. The scene shifted to Dany, who said the time had come. He approached Ozma, the third son of a hunter, and told him that he was going to take him down. Ozma said they should grab the weapons and armor from there, and he had got a cart nearby. Dany told him that he was glad he was riding along with him. Ozma denied it, saying he had his brother watching him, so hunting in a new land could be a good change. Dany told him that he was counting on him. Ozma said that he should head to the village first, and Dany told him yes, saying he would catch up in no time. Ozma left for the village, and Dany approached the girl he had met at the pub. Her name was Colette, and he told her that he was heading back to Ramsay and asked her if she would like to join him. She told him to give her a moment to think and slammed the door on his face, basically rejecting him. Dany knew he could not wallow in sadness, as he had to visit other houses too. He went to Roger's girlfriend, Gordon's girlfriend, and Eliza's house to invite them, and they agreed to head off to Bartlett Village. Dany was sad that he could not get his girlfriend to come. In the morning, Dany slapped Ramsay to wake him up. Ramsay woke up in a hurry and saw Ozma and Dany there. He was glad that he had come back, and Dany apologized for keeping him waiting and said he had brought a little something too. He introduced his ally Ozma, and Ozma told him to leave the hunting to him. Dany saw that a lot more people were in the village and said a lot had happened. Gordon came and hugged Dany, saying he had been shocked to hear that he had betrayed them. Dany apologized, saying to fool the enemy he had to mislead his own team, but his time buying had helped them. Eric came and asked what was in the cart he had brought, and Dany said that he had gathered all the weapons Paul had prepared, and this should keep them quiet for a while. Ramsay complimented Dany, saying he was very reliable, and he grinned at the compliment. Ramsay told him to take over as the captain of the soldiers there while he was at it. He agreed, but then realized that he had made a mistake. Ramsay called Archibald and introduced Dany to him, saying he was the candidate for their soldier captain. He told him that he wanted to train them hard, and he told Dany to listen well to Lord Archibald. Back at Paul's place, his worker woke him up, telling him that Dany and Ozma were nowhere to be found. Paul got very angry at this, asking how dare they treat him like this. He swore that he would end them. It was the 3rd of July, and it had been 4 months since the establishment of the Bartlett territory. The population was rising, and the village was bustling with life. They had also created a registry for those who had moved from Hendos. They were recording names, ages, and genders to track harvest yields and labor contributions. The newcomers included 14 children and 59 adults, 2 of whom were elderly. The gender ratio was about 3 to 4, with more women. Most were experienced farmers, with a few seamstresses and blacksmiths among them. Many had relied on simple tasks like transporting goods for a living. They decided to specialize in agriculture and assign accordingly, with Willie taking care of rye, Gordon managing grapes, Henry taking care of beans, and Charlie managing garlic and turnips. Including Roger, Eric, and Ozma, they paired them up with apprentices to assist in the tasks. Dany was leading 5 soldier trainees. For the time being, the rest focused on farming and clearing the land. Ramsay saw that everyone was united and working hard to uplift the village. He wondered how they should expand, as he would have liked to create some local specialities too. Ramsay was happy, as he had always wanted to live this kind of life. A few days later, on the 14th of July, Kathy approached Ramsay with other women, saying she needed to talk to him for a moment. Ramsay felt weird about this, and Kathy showed him the warehouse, telling him that the stored food was running low and they only had 1 bag of rye left. Ramsay knew this was not good, and Kathy said they would not last more than 10 days at this rate. Ramsay asked Tina to call everyone. Eliza said she had been cutting back, but it had reached its limit. Ramsay wondered if they could harvest the village crops early. When everyone came, Ramsay said he had something he wanted to ask everyone. He asked about the crops they were currently growing and when they could expect to harvest them. Willie told him that they would be ready by mid-August, and the yield looked promising. Henry said that the beans should be ready by early August. Gordon said that the grapes still needed time, so they should be patient. Charlie said that the turnips could be harvested soon. Ramsay and the other women eyed Charlie, and he asked them what was up. Ramsay showed him the warehouse and told him that they had been running out of food, so getting those turnips quickly would be a huge help. Charlie said that he had wanted to plant at the start of April to have 3 harvests a year, but he had been late this year, so they could only manage this one and another in early November. Kathy asked him what kind of yield they were looking at. Charlie told her that, considering everyone would be eating maybe about a month's worth. The women started discussing among themselves, saying that turnips would last them this month, so by then the beans would be ripe, and after that they would have rye too, so they should be able to manage. But they knew that just turnips would not last them half a month, so they decided to gather wild greens and would ask Ozma for help. The guys saw that the girls were very reliable. Ramsay saw that they had a food crisis and knew he needed to come up with a plan. At night, he went to Ozma, asking him if he had a moment. Ozma addressed him as Lord and Ramsay stopped him, telling him to call him Ramsay like usual. He then told Ramsay to feel free to ask him for anything. Ramsay said that he actually wanted to discuss the food situation. After explaining the situation, Ozma got it, saying that if they were to feed the entire village, they would need to target some big boars. Ramsay asked if they could aim for something like that, and Ozma told him to some extent as boars were large, so they left quite a bit of trace behind. He told him that in any case, starting tomorrow, he would aim for the big game, and Ramsay told him he was counting on him. When Ramsay left Ozma's place, he thought to himself that he could not really depend solely on Ozma, and he needed another solution if there was one. He thought about it for a while. In the morning, Ramsay went to the spring water. The Tess River flowed along the boundary of the royal territory. Ramsay felt that his plan could work. He planned to do stone fishing, a fishing method where he hit a rock in the water with another stone, stunning nearby fish and then scooping them up. He wanted to avoid disrupting the ecosystem, but desperate times called for desperate measures. He picked up a giant stone and walked on the river and then hit a stone with it, causing the nearby fish to rise up. He decided to do his best for everyone in the village. After a while, he caught many fish and loaded them up in his cart. He wanted to get it home while they were still fresh. He believed that everyone would be happy. When he arrived back, he saw that everyone was discussing something among themselves. Just then, Kathy called Ramsay, asking where he had been. He tried to tell her about the fish he had, but she told him that it was not time for that, as Ozma had brought back a big boar for them. Ramsay again tried to tell her that he also had caught some fish, but Kathy ignored him, wondering how she would cook the boar. Ramsay was sad to see this as he had tried his best, and Dany consoled him, saying it was just bad timing. It was now the 2nd of August, and a beautiful harvest had grown. Ramsay asked Willie if it was okay to harvest now, and Willie denied him, saying they needed to ripen a bit more. He left the decision to Willie and told him to call him when it was time to harvest. Ramsay then visited Henry, asking how it was going over there, and he told him that the harvest was looking great. Ramsay asked him about expanding the fields, and Henry told him that he had sorted out the tasks, so he would bring the map later for him to check out. Ramsay then offered to help with the farming, but Henry denied him, saying there was no need, so he should just relax. Ramsay left Henry, thinking to himself that he was so bored. He had finished the paperwork and village expansion plans. Roger and Eric had apprentices, so he was just there twiddling his thumbs. Just then Dany came and saw that he was just lazing around. Ramsay knew what Dany planned to do and tried to get out of it, saying that he had got some things to take care of. But Dany grabbed him, went to Archibald and told him that starting today, Ramsay would join the training. Archibald was glad to hear that, saying as a lord he needed to fight to protect his people. First, he geared up and started running. It was very difficult for him, as the armor was very heavy. Then he had to practice swinging with his wooden sword. He asked how long this was going to last, and Archibald told him that he would keep at it until he mastered the proper form. After that, Archibald told him to jump into some real combat training. He said that slash, stab, and more, he should ingrain those techniques into his body. Ramsay sparred with Dany, telling him that he would definitely hold a grudge. Dany told him that he still held a grudge. Archibald was happy to see everyone in high spirits, though someone commented that this was just a brawl. It was now the 15th of October, and Paul again went to the tavern. His workers noted that he had been hanging out at the tavern way too much lately. Paul slammed his empty mug down, telling the bartender to bring him more booze. The bartender apologized, saying that they were out of ale. Paul said that if there was no ale, then bring him wine or mead or anything. He was still annoyed by Ramsay and wondered if there was any way to make him eat his words. Just then, one of his workers, Ivan, approached him, telling him that if he did not like Ramsay, then it would be better to just off him. Paul threw his empty mug at him, calling him stupid, and saying that his old man would stop him from doing that. Ivan told him that it might be banned for Paul, but they were not nobles, so they were not banned from anything. Paul was surprised by this idea and started laughing, saying that this was a good idea and he could not believe that he had not thought of something so simple. He said that it was simple. Instead of Paul Rugel, they would disguise themselves as thieves and raid their base. He knew that they were unarmed right now and told everyone to hurry up and prepare. His worker asked when they were going to execute this, and he told them that they would after the snow melted. His worker excitedly told him to do this right now, as his muscles were itching for action. Paul told them again that he did not have any weapons. He said that it would take at least 3 months to prepare and the snow would start to pile up soon, but then it would be hard to set it ablaze. He told Ramsay in his mind to just wait, as he was coming to destroy his hideout completely. Ramsay and Dany were having fun after tiring themselves out while training. It was now the 3rd of November, and the winter was almost there in the territory. Ramsay was walking around and felt the cold breeze. He knew that by mid-December, snow would settle, so they needed to prepare for winter. He told Dany and Eric that he was heading to Hendo's for supplies and asked if they could help him out, as he had a lot of lumber this time. Dany agreed, saying he would help him as his guard, and Eric said that sounded fun and also decided to come. He saw that they just wanted to hit the town, but realized that everyone needed a breather sometimes. He decided to leave it to the two of them. The three of them headed to Hendo's and arrived there on time. The guard recognized Ramsay and he approached the lumberyard, telling the owner that he was looking to sell some lumber. The owner saw that he had brought mountains of wood this time, and as always, it was in top-notch quality. He said that he could offer 9,000 rubara for these. Ramsay thought to himself that he knew birch was in oversupply, so negotiating the price might be tricky. Dany then told the owner to make it a nice round 10,000 rubara. The owner said it could not be helped and settled on that price. Ramsay was taken aback by this and confronted the owner, saying that he had told them that he had an excess of birch the other day, so what had happened? The owner struggled to speak, and Ramsay told him to spill the beans and promised to keep coming back for more. The owner said that the scoop was Lord Hendrik of the Frontier had hoarded all of the lumber, leaving them short. He had brought nearly 3 times the usual amount that year, and that was why he wanted to stock up on as much lumber as he could get his hands on. Ramsay was surprised by this and Dany thanked the owner. As they left, Dany asked if the Lord's household consumed that much firewood. Ramsay replied that it was a big mansion, and Dany said that he should have hiked up the prices. Ramsay said that if he had not known, this information would not have come to light. He noticed Eric seeing something and asked him if he wanted something. Eric said that it was not like that, and Ramsay saw that he was looking at charcoal. Dany saw that charcoal was really pricey, and Ramsay said that it was because winter was coming, so the demand was rising. Eric asked if they could make charcoal in the Bartlett territory, and Ramsay agreed, remembering a television show from his past where an idol group built a charcoal kiln from scratch. Ramsay told him that they could. Eric got excited by this, saying they should make charcoal themselves. Dany asked if there was even an advantage to making charcoal and said that firewood was just fine. Eric told him that charcoal sold high, and Dany said that they could just buy charcoal for a good price and making charcoal was a waste of effort. They argued a bit, and Ramsay tried to break them off, saying that both sides had valid points. He told them to hold off for now. When Eric asked why, he explained that first, even if they could make charcoal, if it was half-baked, it could explode, making it unsafe to use. Also, there was no difference in burn time between firewood and charcoal, only whether it's smoked or not. To prevent poisoning, it was better to have visible smoke. Eric understood and Dany complimented him, saying he was surprisingly knowledgeable. Ramsay said if they had extra, they could try making some, as it would be good to learn. Eric got happy hearing this. He said that they should wrap up their shopping quickly and they all agreed. After buying a lot of items, Dany asked if they really needed to stock up that much, and Ramsay told him that they needed to, as food disappeared in no time. Eric got frustrated seeing that they brought rye and said he wanted wheat. Dany said that he got that growing rye in the village was easier, but asked if they could just buy wheat. Ramsay told them that rye was cheaper than wheat, and at that time they needed quantity over taste, and besides, rye was more nutritious. Eric and Dany were surprised to hear this. Ramsay thought to himself that in a world without hospitals, if they got sick, they either healed themselves or died. He wanted them to hold out for health. He said that they should load up and head back to the village, and they all agreed. After loading up, they all realized it was very heavy as they had stocked up too much. Eric asked when they were going to get back. Ramsay said that they should switch off and keep pushing. Eric told Dany to let him take the lead for a while. Ramsay saw that the cart was very heavy and thought about the weight of it. On the 10th of November, Dany and Ramsay were digging the ground. Dany said that he had just told them that they were not going to make charcoal and asked why he was trying to build a charcoal kiln that day. Ramsay said that he had not planned on it yet, but his reasoning was still solid. He said that he had realized something, and that was that firewood was heavy. He continued, saying that if they carbonized it and removed the moisture, it would be way lighter and easier to transport and use. Dany agreed, and Ramsay said that he was going to need his help. Dany agreed to help. After digging a large hole, they created a flue and coated the walls with clay. Ramsay told Dany not to forget to line the bottom with straws. And then they tightly packed any wood that could be turned into charcoal, like logs and branches. Also, to minimize oxygen exposure, they layered rye husks and such. Once they blocked off the entrance with bricks, they lit a fire in the wood inside, sealed it completely, and the charcoal kiln was done. Dany asked if this would actually make charcoal, and Ramsay told him that he was not super confident, but maybe it would. He said that they would refine it as they went. Just then 2 kids appeared who had been in the mountain collecting leaves and twigs. They saw Ramsay and Dany, and Ramsay asked them what they were doing all the way out there. The girl explained that she had come to gather leaves and branches for the campfire since it was cold. Ramsay told her not to wander too far from the village, as the mountains could be dangerous, and the girl agreed. Dany said he would help them too, and the boy told Dany to get back to work. Dany said that he had just finished another task. Ramsay thought about what else they needed to prepare. He approached Henry and asked about crafting during winter. Ramsay explained that once the snow piled up they could not farm, so he thought that making wooden crafts would be a good idea. Henry asked if he meant like spoons and forks, and Ramsay agreed, saying he had asked Charlie to whip up a prototype. They went inside a house where Charlie and Eliza were working with wood. Charlie explained that he had tried making a chair, and Ramsay told him that it looked great. He told him that they might not be big enough to sell, but they should work fine in the village. He then saw Eliza's work, and it was some weird piece. When he asked her what she was making, she was surprised to see that he could not tell. She told him that it was definitely a bear with a fish in its mouth. Ramsay was shocked to hear that and said that he hoped they sold well. Eliza was confident in them, saying they were a masterpiece, so it was obvious they would sell. Ramsay called Charlie and told him that since they had limited wood, he wanted to keep Eliza away from it, and Charlie agreed. Eliza asked if something was wrong, and Ramsay denied it, saying it was nothing. He said that for the skilled hands, they should have them make figurines or decorations, and for others, spoons and bowls would be good. Eliza said that seemed safe enough. Ramsay left the assignment to Henry and Charlie, saying he was going to take a little tour of the village. Just then, Eric called Ramsay, saying that the construction crew was gathered. Ramsay said that they should get started on renovations for each house. They approached different houses, preparing them for the winter. They needed to be cautious about the heating for the winter. To prevent frostbite and carbon monoxide poisoning in small homes, they installed simple flues for fireplaces in each house. They decided to make that area a fireplace, and he told other workers to just ensure that the chimney was tall enough to vent outside. He continued, saying that the structure of houses was the same, so they would do the same for the others, too. Eric and the others were ready to get back to the work, and Ramsay left them off. He was relieved that now it looked like they would just manage to be ready for winter. And so, the first winter came to the Bartlett territory. After a few days, Dany was playing a snowball fight with other kids who scolded him, telling him to act his age. Dany said that it was too sweet, and in a serious match age did not matter. Just then he got hit by a snowball to the face thrown by Eric. He called Eric a jerk, and Eric called him a slowpoke. They fought for a bit, and the children planned to gang up and take them both out. Ramsay saw this from his cabin and could not believe that they were still doing this in that cold. The Bartlett territory was fully embracing winter, and the snow was piled up to his waist. They had distributed supplies, but he worried about the residents stuck inside and wanted to go check on them. But still, he saw that he was really short on funds. Considering the need to pay taxes to Baron Hendrik, they had to secure a stable income. He thought about how they should rake in the cash. He saw that there were two approaches. One way was to boost productivity and sell a mountain of goods. He knew that relying upon sheer manpower was not feasible, so they needed to streamline farming and forestry. He thought about tractors and chainsaws and knew that with their current technology, he could only think of things they could not prepare. He knew that this method would not work and moved into another option to consider, which was adding value to the products themselves. He tried to think about something that could sell for a good price. He knew that grapes were not ready for production yet, and they could not get enough animal pelts to sell. What they could use were rye, beans, turnips, and timber. He knew that rye might be the most consumable. He tried to think about a rye-based product. Just then, he heard a voice, and it was Dany and Eric freezing, saying that those kids were so full of energy that it was a problem. Eric agreed, and they both sat outside the fireplace. They said that the place had so many drafts, and in that cold he could really use something to warm him from the inside. When Ramsay heard this, he got an idea. Using rye, something easy to make would be alcohol. He remembered his past life when he used to live in the northern lands. There was a young exchange student named Artyom who came from even farther north. He told them that they could make alcohol from bread. The way to make the alcohol he taught them was so simple that it was barely sticking in his memory. Ramsay called everyone and said that they should brew some alcohol. Willie and Gordon came to help, and Gordon said that he had prepared rye bread as he said. Ramsay thanked him. What they were about to make was kvass. It was a mildly alcoholic beverage widely consumed in Russia and elsewhere. The downside was that it would not reach 3% alcohol. The first step was to bake the rye bread until it was golden brown. Then they would dissolve the yeast in warm water and encourage fermentation beforehand. Then they would put warm water in a large jar, add the toasted bread, wild berries, and the fermented yeast, and then cover it up. By adding berries, it would create alcohol from the sugars and enhance the flavor. Now they just needed to wait for fermentation to finish. Willie asked how long they should let it sit, and Ramsay told him he was not sure either, and they just had to taste it every half day to check. Dany volunteered for tasting, but Eric cut him off, saying he had no palate and asked Ramsay to leave it to him. Ramsay said that he would leave it to the two of them and told them not to drink it without permission. They drank it in between, and after a few days the pot was empty and they both sat down with guilt on their face. While others were angry, Ramsay had expected that this would happen. Henry asked them which time was the best. Dany said that it was the morning of the third day, and Eric said he thought it was the second night. Ramsay asked them if it had really turned into alcohol, and Dany confirmed it, saying that he was feeling warm so he thought it had turned into alcohol. Willie said that the brewing itself was successful, and Gordon said that they needed to figure out how much rye they should use for brewing. Ramsay said he would check the ledger and calculate it. He told Eric and Dany that since they drank it all without permission, their punishment was to pick berries from the mountain. Eric asked if they had to do it in that cold, and Ramsay said it was a punishment. They went to the mountain in heavy snow to pick berries. It was now the 6th of January. It had been a week since the new year and the cold was still biting. Ramsay tasted the alcohol and said he needed to increase the yeast next time. Just then, Dany came shouting at Ramsay. Ramsay told him that he needed to calm down, and when he came in, Dany told him this was not the time for that and said that Paul still wanted to end him. Ramsay got frustrated by this, saying that his brother had some serious obsession and if only he could have channeled that passion elsewhere. He asked Dany where he had heard that, and Dany told him he had been going back to Rugel village to see his girlfriend, and he heard it from there. Ramsay said they should talk about what was next and told him to call Ozma and old Archibald for him. Dany agreed and brought them to Ramsay's house. Ramsay apologized to Archibald for bothering him in the snow. Archibald asked what kind of trouble they were in now. Dany explained the situation, also adding that Paul had been stockpiling weapons and armor again. Ozma asked if the story was credible, and Dany told him that he heard it from Colette in Rugel village, so if he was worried about the information, they could send someone to scout. Ozma asked didn't Earl tell him not to mess with Ramsay, so did Paul not get the message? Archibald said that even after the warning, he still wanted the Lord's head. Ramsay said as long as no one found out he was the killer, he was good. He continued, saying that the problem was that the conditions were way too favorable to him. Dany asked about it, and he explained that Paul's victory condition was to take him down, and if he got caught or killed, he lost. On their side, they just needed to fend Paul off, but they had to do it with minimal damage. Ozma said it would be a hassle if they set fire to their homes, and Ramsay added that the timing of the attack was entirely up to him, so everything was in Paul's hands. Archibald said that it was best to lure Paul out and strike. Ozma said that Ramsay would likely be the bait, but there was a risk of the village being attacked in the meantime. Dany asked if he should report this to Ramsay's father and have him rein him in. Ramsay said that Paul and others would just play dumb as they were operating in secrecy. He said that either way, he thought they should act after the snow melted. He said that they should gather information and come up with a plan by then. On the 11th of January, Ivan and Paul entered a house. One of his workers saw armor and swords and said these were some fine stuff. He asked Paul how he had got his hands on it, and Paul explained that, according to the merchant sleigh, things were getting tense in the capital, so they used this to butter up his father. Ivan asked him if he could try on the armor, and Paul told him he could, saying once the snow melted they would strike hard, so he should get used to that iron sword by then. One of the workers asked what they should do about the rat that had sneaked in. Paul told him to just leave it be. He knew that Ramsay's allies had infiltrated Rugel village, but if they said they came there to see their parents, they could not just kick them out, so it was better to focus on boosting their own strength instead. His main goal was to take down Ramsay, so the other villagers were of no concern as long as they did not get in the way. Paul said that he would leave his weapons and armor there and told his worker not to lose or steal them because if anything happened again, he would make them pay for it. The workers were terrified by this. Ivan went outside, as Paul had ordered him to deliver the gate to Tom and John. He said that Paul was very demanding as he had to carry this heavy bag in heavy snow and rain. He reached Tom's house and knocked on his door asking if he was in there. He saw the lights on and knew he was in there, knocking even harder. Tom opened up the door, apologizing for it, saying he was just having a drink and asked him if he wanted to join. Ivan said he would join for a bit. Tom welcomed him in and Ivan then saw another person in there. Ivan asked who this was and Tom told him that this was his buddy. The person was Henry and he introduced himself, saying he had brought some drink over and told Ivan it was nice to meet him. He told them that the drink was called kvass and said it was not the best, but it was good enough for getting drunk. He saw Ivan holding a bag and asked what he was carrying. Ivan got nervous, thinking to himself that he could not talk about this with outsiders. He told Henry that supposedly things were getting tense in the capital and there might be conscription. Tom got shocked by this and asked if that was true. Ivan said he did not know much either and Paul had told him about this. He handed the bag to Tom, saying this was for him and downed a glass of kvass, saying this was surprisingly good. Henry agreed and Ivan said that he had not been able to get a drink since Paul started causing chaos. Henry asked him how much they would pay for the drink. Ivan said he would give him 3 rubera for a mug, as 5 rubera felt too steep. Ivan and Tom started laughing and having fun among themselves, and Henry thought to himself that their plan was working. The scene shifted to Hendrik's palace, where he asked his butler how the king's health was. His butler told him that it did not look good, and it was probably just a matter of time before he passed. He said that the issue of succession was heating up. Hendrik said that a rivalry for the throne between the prince and the king's younger brother was very thrilling. The current king, Magic V, was withering in age and teetering on the brink of death. The battle for succession was heating up between Prince Emil and his much younger brother, the Duke Ignes. Hendrik knew that the rightful heir was Prince Emil, but the butler cut him off, saying that the prince was an ardent supporter of the empire. They saw the map of the Pendjura Empire. They knew that he had already taken a princess from the Western Pendjura Empire as his bride, and they had even borne children. Hendrik said that if this continued, their kingdom might very well be swallowed by imperial ambitions. The butler asked if they should continue supporting Duke Ignes, and Hendrik said that the empire did not recognize any faith other than the Holy Divine Church, and that was a huge problem. He wondered what move they should make. The butler asked him what the plan was, as he must have had something in mind. Hendrik laughed, seeing that the butler was already aware. He said that he thought to take advantage of the chaos to expand his territory. He declared that he was going to attack Baron Borden. The butler understood, saying that Baron Borden was also pro-empire, having married an imperial noble, and he had heard that he had made quite a fortune through trade. He asked what reason he had to invade, and Hendrik said that was something he would create from scratch. It was now the 18th of February. Ramsay was walking around and saw that the snow was finally melting, but the ground was still tricky. He needed to go shopping in Hendo as he had used up more rye than he expected for the kvass research. Dany then came with a loaded cart, saying they had loaded all the sellable wooden goods. Ramsay asked him if they should head out and Dany agreed. After walking for a while, they took a break, and Dany asked him where they could sell wooden goods as they could not sell to their usual lumber supplier this time. He asked him if he had any leads and Ramsay denied thinking about it. He said that asking someone who knew the whole town was the best. They went to Hendrik's residence, and Ramsay told the guard there that he was Ramsay Bartlett and he would like to meet Mr. Anthony. The guard went inside to get him, and Dany got angry at this, saying this was Count Hendrik's mansion and they could not just waltz in like this. Ramsay agreed, saying he could not meet the count, so he asked for the steward. Hendrik's butler Anthony came out greeting Ramsay. Ramsay apologized, saying he had something to ask. He asked him if a permit was required to sell alcohol in this town. Anthony told him that if he was supplying stores, especially to the public, then he would need one. He asked him if he was planning to do business there, and Ramsay denied it, saying that he was just sorting out funds for his excellency. He said that he was hoping Anthony could recommend places that bought lumber, wooden goods, and alcohol. Anthony thought to himself that Ramsay was a bold little monk. Ramsay knew what he was thinking, but as a representative of the court, he knew Anthony could not brush him off, as they did not want rumors like, "The count does not value his vassals," to spread. Anthony let out a heavy sigh and said that for wooden goods, Collins Trading, for alcohol, Soap's Tavern, and for timber, Daga's shop were the best. Ramsay thanked him and Dany was getting bored. Ramsay then asked Anthony if he knew any rumors from the capital. Anthony asked him what he meant by that and thought to himself that he just wanted Ramsay to get out of there already. Ramsay asked him if he had not heard and said he would tell him. He told him that there seemed to be unsettling movements in the capital regarding the succession and asked him what his thoughts were on this matter. He said that surely Steward Anthony was aware of this. Anthony was taken aback by this, thinking to himself that once he had feigned ignorance, he could not speak carelessly. If he said nothing when Lord Darrell Hendrik called for him, he might retort, "Didn't you say there would be no action?" But he could not just relay the Count's intentions on his own. He realized that he had underestimated Ramsay as a country bumpkin and wondered how far ahead he was thinking. He told Ramsay to hurry up and sell those goods, and Lord Darrell would speak directly with him. He told him to return there promptly. Ramsay waved at him, saying he would be back right away. After they left the mansion, Dany said that was nerve-wracking and asked Ramsay if he was sure about meeting the Baron. Ramsay told him that he needed to keep an eye on his guardian's movements. Just then, they arrived at the Collins Trading Company. When they entered the place, they saw that it was filled with people. Dany said that this place was bustling, and Ramsay said that this place was said to be one of the top trading companies in town. He saw some people discussing something and told them that he was sent there by Anthony. A guy named Ashley, who was a Collins Trading Company merchant, was surprised that they were introduced by Anthony and asked them if they had business with them. Ramsay confirmed this, saying he was hoping to sell some wooden goods. Ashley looked at the quality of the goods and said they were not bad at all. He said that the total would be 1,200 rubella. Ramsay thought about it and asked if they dealt in rye as well. Ashley confirmed this, saying that this was the famous Collins Trading Company after all. Ramsay said that it was great and asked if they could trade it for 3 barrels of rye. Dany asked him if he was sure he did not want cash instead. Ramsay told him that rye was the main goal, and it was better to exchange directly for what he wanted rather than lose money on fees. Ashley thought about this, and Ramsay told him that he was in a bit of a hurry as he had an appointment with Baron Darrell after this. Ashley was unable to believe this, telling him to stop joking around. Ramsay told him that he was not lying and suggested that if what he said was true, then he wanted 4 barrels of rye. If it was a lie, then just 2 barrels. He asked Ashley what he thought, and Ashley thought to himself that for a merchant, it was not a bad deal either way. He agreed to the bet, saying he was in. Ramsay told him to move, and Ashley told his workers to keep an eye on the cargo. They arrived at Darrell's estate, and Ashley told Ramsay that if he wanted to back out, now was the time. Ramsay went to the gate where the guard acknowledged him and asked him to come inside. Ashley was shocked to hear this, and Dany smiled, seeing this. When they entered inside, Anthony met them, telling Ramsay he could proceed, but his companions would wait in the room. Ramsay entered a dark room where Darrell Hendrick was sitting. He said he was glad to see Ramsay. Ramsay greeted him, apologizing for his attire. Darrell told him not to worry about it and to make himself comfortable. Ramsay sat down in front of him, and Darrell said he would get right to the main topic. He confirmed Ramsay's suspicion, saying there were troubling movements in the capital and telling him that he planned to take advantage of this to expand his territory. Ramsay was shocked to hear this. He had intended to use the ball to request Darrell's help, yet he openly declared such intentions. He sensed trouble brewing. Ramsay sat in silence and Darrell complimented him, saying silence was golden. He continued, saying that his target was the Borden barony to the west, and he came there that day for a reason. He asked Ramsay if he could create a pretext for him to invade. Ramsay was shocked by this. He calmed himself down and asked him what was in it for him. Darrell asked him what he wanted, and Ramsay said he wanted land and money. Darrell explained that land might be tricky immediately, but he could prepare the money. He told him that if he was successful, he would pay him 50,000 rubella. Ramsay said, in addition, he wanted a 5-year tax exemption. Darrell agreed to 3 years. Ramsay thought to himself that if he could gain some financial freedom, it was not a bad deal, and at this point, refusing was tough. If he was going to poison the well, then go all in. Ramsay asked if it was just to create a pretext, and Darrell confirmed this. Ramsay accepted this and said he had a proposal to add. The scene then shifted to Dany, who was a bit drunk, telling Ramsay he and Ashley had talked for a while. Ramsay saw that Dany had quite a good time. Dany explained that they brought wine and dried meat non-stop. Ashley approached then, apologizing to Ramsay for doubting him and saying that, as promised, he would arrange for 4 barrels of rye and lodging for the night. Ramsay thanked Ashley and shook his hand, saying he looked forward to working with him. Ashley asked him who exactly he was. On the 2nd of March, Paul said it was about time to take action, as he and his friends were ready for their plan. He told everyone that it was time to move. One of his friends was excited that they were leaving, and Paul said that the early bird got the worm and they were hitting the base under the cover of night. Ivan was frightened by this, telling Paul that there was no rush to act and that last time, Ramsay and others had stolen their crops. Paul said that Ramsay's mind had changed as he had heard they had a stash of liquor, and that alone was a good haul. Ivan thought to himself that Paul was suddenly eager, but realized that someone had influenced him. A man in a dark hood stood behind them with a smile on his face. Paul told everyone to hurry up and get ready. They all listened to him. At night, they walked through the bushes. He said that they should talk as they moved. He told them that Ramsay was holed up in the biggest house and they would strike there, but they had to keep quiet until then. One of them asked what the plan was, and Paul explained that they would set fire from all sides, and since it was the dead of the night, they would not extinguish it quickly, and the smoke could take him out. One of them asked Paul that, since he could not kill him himself, was that okay, and Paul said that as long as Ramsay was ended, that was all that mattered. He said that those who obsessed over doing it themselves tended to die young. The man in the hood laughed at this. calling Paul brilliant and saying he seemed to have a talent for leadership. One of Paul's workers asked who the guy in the hood was, and Paul realized that his workers were meeting that man for the first time. He introduced him as Keith, saying he could not reveal too much, but he was under the command of a noble. Paul smiled, saying his luck had finally turned. His worker said if Paul said so, they would trust him. Just then, one of them spotted the village and told Paul that the village was coming into view. Paul told them to extinguish the lights and approach. He said that first they would cover their faces and told them not to forget to act like bandits. After a while, as the night silence grew, they approached the village and spotted Ramsay's house. One of them asked Paul if that was it, and Paul said there was no doubt about it. He told them to light the torches and go all out. They did so and threw the torches at the house, making it catch on fire. The house started to burn and Paul laughed, seeing this, shouting at Ramsay that this was his end. The other villagers came out and saw that a fire had been started. One of the workers tried to scare the villagers away, telling them that this was not a show and if they wanted to live then they should scatter. Dany and other soldiers came, asking them what they were doing in their village. The workers thought they were weaklings. Paul told them to support Tony as he also thought they could beat them. Just then, Ramsay came out in armor and with a sword attacking Paul. Paul managed to block and was surprised to see Ramsay still alive. He pushed Ramsay away, seeing that he was still alive. He asked him if he had found a lady and saved his skin. Ramsay said that it was pathetic to think this was what he called a brother, and he could cry. Paul trash-talked back, telling him not to worry as he was about to make him cry blood. With a smile on his face, he raised his sword and attacked Ramsay. Ramsay managed to block and parry. They both exchanged blows, and thanks to Archibald's grueling training, he could hold his own, but there was just too much of a power gap between them. Ramsay was struggling while Paul was taking it easy. Ramsay knew that if things continued like this, he was done for, but he refused to back down. Just then, Keith called Paul, telling him this was where it ended. When Paul asked why, Keith told him to look around, where he saw most of his workers captured, and two of his friends, Tony and Paul's younger brother, Kuhn, were dead. He was shocked to see this. Dany and others were still fresh and ready to back up Ramsay. Keith told Paul that they were at a disadvantage and asked him to let him guide him and that they should regroup and reassess. Paul had no choice but to agree and run away with Keith. Dany tried to chase after him, but Ramsay stopped him, telling him there was no need and fire control came first. Charlie and other villagers brought some water in buckets, and Ramsay told them that if they acted now, they could contain the damage to just the base. He told everyone to join forces and put out that fire. Keith and Paul were running away, and Paul was cursing Ramsay, saying he would never forgive him. On the 4th of March at Hendrik's mansion, Ramsay was there with Dany and Ozma, all were well dressed. Daryl came, apologizing to Ramsay for keeping him waiting. Anthony also welcomed Lord Hans Rugel, who had also come, looking sad and distraught. Daryl sat down, asking everyone present if they should discuss the details. Ramsay summarized the attack on Bartlett village that had occurred recently and asked his father, Lord Rugel, if he had any objections or counterarguments. Hans looked disappointed and sad. He wondered if it could really be Paul, asking Ramsay if he had any evidence. Ramsay told him of course he did. He told him that all the attacks were by residents of Rugel village, totaling 6. They were Paul, Kuhn, Tony, Ivan, John, and Tom. He told him that they had captured 3 of them, so if he doubted them, they could bring the captured there. Hans asked what about the other 3, and Ramsay told him that the mastermind Paul had fled, abandoning everyone. The remaining 2, Tony and the second son of the Rugel family, Kuhn, were dead. Hans was absolutely shocked by this. He put his palm on his face, hiding his sadness, and told everyone he understood. Ramsay told him that he would deliver the bodies to his estate later. Daryl smiled at this, saying now it was time for the verdict. He told Hans Rugel that ignoring prior warnings and attacking Allied territory was a grave offense. Even if it was by his son's doing, a parent had a duty to supervise. He said that he would not take his life, but he would strip him of his title and lands and exile him. Hans agreed, and Daryl continued, saying that Lord Ramsay Bartlett would not face any blame for defending his territory. He then concluded this uproar. Ramsay, from the window, saw his father leave in absolute shame and sadness. Dany sat down, saying that being in front of the Baron of the Borderlands was nerve-wracking. Ozma agreed. Ramsay then apologized to both of them. When Ozma asked what was with the sudden suggestion, Ramsay explained that he wanted to apologize for not communicating properly before. He told them that this whole incident was a scheme between him and the Baron of the Borderlands. They then jumped back to the past when Ramsay was meeting Daryl. He told him that he had an idea. He explained to him that his brother Paul still had not given up on killing him, so how about he gave Daryl his endorsement? Daryl was intrigued by this. Ramsay explained that, for example, if he spread rumors that the Baron and Lord Borden disliked him, Paul would take that bait and attack Bartlett's lands. Daryl understood and said that, feigning to let him escape, the Baron would lead him into a trap, becoming guilty of harboring an attack. He told Ramsay that it was not a bad idea and he would assign his squire, Keith, as a messenger. He signaled Anthony to do so and told Ramsay that he would inform him of the attack date in advance, and he needed to focus on defending the village. Back to the present, Ramsay was done explaining the situation, and Dany understood that Ramsay knew there would be an attack that day. Ozma said that since they had moved their belongings out beforehand, the damage was minimal, and Dany said that the base that burned down was already scheduled for reconstruction anyway. Ramsay agreed but said that he had put everyone in danger, so he was sorry. Ozma told him that there was no need to apologize, as he must have judged that was the best course, and in the end, they were all safe. Ramsay was glad to see that his people trusted him so much. Just then, Daryl came out, telling Ramsay he did well and thanking him for his hard work. He continued, introducing him to Jorg, who served as a general in his Borderlands army. He then told him that they would now begin preparations for a full-scale invasion. But before that, he gave them bags full of rubera, telling them they were the promised 50,000 rubera and telling them to use it wisely. Dany and Ozma were shocked to see so much money. Daryl said that he had just received a message from Keith, and it seemed that Paul had managed to reach Lord Borden safely, so they should plan their next move. Ramsay said that first, as agreed, he would incorporate the formal Rugel territory into Bartlett lands and asked him if he was sure this was all right. Daryl said that they must give him a reason to attack from that direction, and if he believed he was robbed of that land that should rightfully be his. He continued, saying that knowing it was Ramsay on the other side, Paul would not keep quiet. He would require Lord Borden to hand over Paul, and refusal would lead to the use of force. Ramsay asked what if the Baron straightforwardly agreed to hand him over, and Daryl winked at Ramsay, saying that he would make sure he had no choice left but to refuse, as he would demand a hefty compensation for harboring Paul. Ramsay heard this and thought to himself that Daryl was a shrewd individual. It was now the 8th of March. Paul was at Baron Borden's mansion waiting. Just then, a maid came, calling Paul and telling him that Lord Costello had summoned him. The head of the Borden family, Costello de Borden, greeted him, and Paul knelt down, trying to pay his respects, but Costello stopped him, saying there was no need for the little church greeting he had adopted for business. He asked Paul if he remembered the story he had told him the other day. Paul said that he did, saying that the Baron was demanding his safety. He thought to himself that it was strange that even Hendrik the Baron must despise Ramsay. Keith had not returned, so he could not confirm anything. Costello confirmed this, along with the compensation of 200,000 rubera. He ripped up a paper saying that according to Hendrik, it was Lord Paul who had initiated the attack, and Paul's father would bear the responsibility, stripped of his title and exiled, and they said that Rugel territory would be absorbed into the Bartlett domain. Paul was shocked to hear this and was very angry. Costello continued, saying that he had heard from a man named Keith that he had been unjustly cast out due to his brother's rebellion, and thus he had protected him in his territory. Costello asked him if he was lying or not, and Paul told him he was not, and the Baron was definitely looking for an excuse to invade. Costello supposed that was how it was and thought to himself that even if he complied, refusing compensation gave Hendrik every reason to attack, and he benefited either way. He said that he must discuss this with Lord Gardel as well. It was now the 12th of March, and Ramsay was discussing with Eric that to prepare for future attacks, he intended to build a new stronghold. He showed him the blueprint he had made, telling him that he would dig up the flatlands to create moats and mounds and with a watchtower at the top, surrounding it with storage and housing enclosed by walls. He told Eric to gather the people of Rugel village and get started right away. Eric told him he would do what he could. Dany came and asked him if he was going to see his father, and Ramsay agreed, saying that he had heard he was leaving the estate today. Ramsay caught his father hands on time. He was glad that Ramsay came. He told him that he had compiled all the necessary documents in the study, and the villagers had been informed, so he did not need to worry. He said that he had never imagined that Ramsay would be the one to succeed, and it was the consequence of not being able to care for him. Ramsay asked him what would happen to him and his mother from now on. He told them that if he had no legs, then he could stay with him. Hans stopped him, saying he had been sentenced to exile, and if Ramsay did not comply, then his position would be jeopardized too. He told him that they were heading to the capital. His mother, Helena's brother, was in the palace and might help them find a military position. Ramsay smiled with fake relief. Hans apologized for not treating him properly until now, and despite that, he had only caused trouble. He told him that Paul was not always twisted, and he had cared for Ramsay when he was little. He asked him if he remembered, and Ramsay remembered a time from his childhood when his brother cared for him and they were happy. Hans said that it was his own fault for expecting too much. He had only hoped for him to expand this territory. He had rigorously trained him in both academics and martial arts, and this was the result. He knew that it was also his responsibility and fault for pushing him too hard. There was a moment of silence between them, and then Hans opened his bag, telling Ramsay this was for him. He showed him a sword, saying that this had been passed down through their family and he should take it. He gave it to him and told him to take care, calling him his son. Ramsay shed a tear at this. Their bond as father and son had been thin. He was aware of being a reincarnation, and as the third son in this country, he had thought he was of no use to him. Ramsay cried, thinking to himself that Hans was indeed his father. He remembered the time when he and his mother held him as he watched them leave. It was now the 15th of March. Ramsay and the others were digging near their base. He was stressed by the tasks he had to accomplish as the Lord, and there was a mountain of things he had to think about. First, he needed to urgently complete the Motte and Bailey fort and moat. Just then someone came to Ramsay, calling him a lord. It was a young man named Johnny who had come from Henderson. Ramsay asked him what was going on, and Johnny said that since Dany was tied up, he was delivering the message instead. He told him that a letter had arrived for him from Baron Hendrik of the Frontier. Ramsay opened the letter and saw that it was a summons letter. He was shocked by this and told Eric to gather all the carpenters from Rugel village and complete the fort immediately. He asked Johnny if he could let Dany know that he was heading to Henderson, and Johnny agreed and asked about his escort, but Ramsay told him not to worry. Once the fort was finished, they would bring in weapons, armor, and food. He told Johnny to handle those arrangements, and Johnny agreed. It was now night, and Ramsay reached the Hendrik residence out of breath, telling the guard he had rushed over there, but it was now quite late. The guard smiled at this, told Ramsay that they had been waiting for him, and asked him to step inside as a maid would guide him. Ramsay dropped his belongings, wore a nice suit, and followed the maid to Daryl's private room. He entered the room and apologized for the wait. Daryl introduced Ramsay to the other men in the room and then introduced the men to Ramsay. The flashy guy was Gilbert, the heir of Viscount Berkeley, and the other guy who was sweating profusely was Oliver, the heir of Baron Lloyd. Ramsay shook their hands and said it was nice to meet them. They said likewise, and Daryl said that they had been friends since childhood, and now they would lend him their strength again. Gilbert said it was a toxic bond, and that was why Daryl always dragged them into his messes. The other guy, Oliver, agreed, saying Daryl's reckless demands were exhausting. Daryl ended the pleasantries and said they should get back to the main topic. He showed them a letter from Baron Borden. Gilbert picked it up and read the contents, which stated, "It is originally Paul, the firstborn, who inherits the Rugel territory. Paul is the rightful heir, and the third son, Ramsay, must promptly return everything to Paul. If this is refused, they will move the entire army to reclaim it." Ramsay said that this was a declaration of war, and Daryl agreed. He said that with such differing opinions, they had no choice but to fight to settle it. But declaring war meant there was no doubt that Earl Gardel supported Baron Borden. Oliver said that Earl Gardel was one of the top military families in the country, and Gilbert said that they should also brace for significant damage on their end. Daryl said that, however, the claim of the entire army was a blatant lie. Ramsay remained silent during the conversation as Daryl continued to explain that if Bartlett's territory was attacked by the entire army, they would be done for. But if the Baron's territory was left completely unguarded, it was clear they would be targeted by the frontier army. Oliver said that meant they would attack with 300 troops, and Hendrik said that was about right. Ramsay thought to himself that even 300 would be a nightmare if they attacked, as that was almost the same number as their own citizens. Gilbert then said that Baron Borden's troop count was about 500 at best, so if he used 300 of these, his own territory would be left almost empty. Oliver agreed with this and said that they would lure them into the Baron's territory and catch them off guard with Gardel's troops all at once. Gilbert realized their plan, and Daryl said that if Earl Gardel could mobilize 2,000 troops, leaving 500 for his own territory, that meant 1,500 troops were hiding in the Baron's land, so underestimating the enemy's forces could lead to their complete annihilation. Ramsay still remained silent, listening to the conversation. Oliver said that depending on the battlefield conditions, they needed triple the forces to take a castle or fort. Gilbert asked Daryl how many troops they could move, and he told him he had 2,000, Oliver had 400, Gil had 300, and Ramsay had. But before he could complete, he cut himself off, saying that they should not expect too much from their forces. Ramsay was kind of embarrassed by this. Gil said that made a total of 2,700, and then a siege would be tough. They continued to discuss more, and Ramsay thought to himself that it had been over an hour and the discussion was going in circles. He knew he could not speak on military strategy, but asked himself if he was just supposed to sit there while he was caught in the middle of this conflict. He tried to speak up, and everyone noticed. Daryl asked him what was wrong. He said that if they were stuck, they should rewind to the premise of their discussion. That meant Daryl and Baron Borden had intervened in his and Paul's succession struggle, and both sides secretly hoped to snatch each other's territory. Daryl confirmed this, and Ramsay asked everyone who they thought would make the first move in this battle. Gil tried to answer but was unable to. Ramsay explained that the one who took the initiative this time would be forced into a tough spot. He continued, saying that since the conflict was over succession, the first target would be Bartlett's territory. If Paul took the initiative and invaded, they could retaliate with the sheer force of the Border Lord's army. On the flip side, if they attacked the Baron's territory, Bartlett's lands and the Border Lords would be left vulnerable to raids. Gil and Oliver agreed with this, and Ramsay said that hence they should make their move. Everyone was confused by this, and Gil asked him if he had not just said that they were putting themselves at a disadvantage. Ramsay told him that he was not without a plan and asked Daryl to lead all the troops he could muster. And if he did that, his lands would be wide open, so he would like to request just 50 soldiers from him. Then he would find a way to turn the tide in Bartlett's territory. Gil asked Daryl what he would do, and after thinking for a while, Daryl smiled and told Ramsay he agreed, saying that he would hire mercenaries with his funds and place them under Ramsay's command, but whatever happened, it would be on Ramsay. Ramsay agreed. Oliver then said that they should use that as their base plan and strategize. Their discussion continued. On the 30th of March at Baron Borden's mansion, a guard called Paul, saying Lord Costello had requested his presence. Paul got excited hearing this. He opened the door to see Costello talking to the House Gardel head, Ludwig von Gardel. Costello said that the young border lord was leading the troops their way, and the number was about 3,000, so he had mobilized nearly his entire army. Costello told Paul that he was entrusting him with 200 of his soldiers so he could go and stabilize his territory. Paul agreed, and Costello told him that he would assign him an aide, so he should make good use of her. Paul thanked him, saying he would surely be of service. He dismissed everyone and Paul left immediately. After wearing the gear, Paul smiled, saying at last it was now time to deliver judgment to Ramsay. Just then he left the mansion. Baron Borden's army captain, Veronica, greeted him, saying she had been waiting for him and she had been appointed to assist this unit. Paul introduced himself and said they should get ready for the battle. Veronica agreed. She told all troops to be prepared. She told Paul that they should be ready to depart in about 30 minutes and asked him what route they should take. She recommended the detour, and Paul denied it, saying taking the northern route risked encountering Hendrik's border forces, and the southern route passed through Lord Dominic's territory, which could cause misunderstandings. He said that it would take longer and bring risks, so the mountains would be better. Veronica thought to herself that it was a valid point, but since this unit had many elderly soldiers, she would have preferred a flat route over a rugged mountain path. She told Paul she understood, and they would take the mountain route but choose a relatively gentle path. Paul agreed and was eager to show Ramsay. Back in Bartlett's territory, Ramsay had finished making the makeshift work, and it was up and running. He had filled the water from the nearby stream, and the food storage was made of earth walls to resist fire, and they had plenty of food stocked. Just then a man came to Ramsay, calling him chief and saying they were all set over there. The man was the leader of the mercenary group Black Eagles, Hawk. Ramsay thanked him and asked how the coordination with Dany was going, and Hawk told him that there were no problems for now. He would have Dany and the others come under their Black Eagle banner. He said that normally it would make sense to integrate the mercenary group into the regular army, but alas, the regulars were just a hastily assembled force, so he could not entrust the lives of his men so easily. Ramsay agreed, saying that having well-seasoned mercenaries led was the best bet, but told him not to waste regular troops. Hawk laughed at this and retorted to Ramsay that he should tell this to the enemy forces. Just then Johnny came, telling Ramsay that the weapons were ready to go. Ramsay asked Johnny how many arrows they had, and he told him that they had about 200. Ramsay knew they were not enough and told Johnny to hold on a second. He told Hawk that he wanted to stock up on arrows, and he wanted the soldiers to gather branches for reconnaissance and asked him if he could get his permission. Hawk told him that it was fine with him, and Ramsay thanked him, saying he would go give some orders. Hawk looked at him with intrigue, thinking to himself that Ramsay was young but still he was a lord, yet he consulted him before moving the troops. Even if he knew it, executing it was another story. He smiled, saying that he could really get some work done here. On March 31st, a messenger came into the village shouting, waking everyone up. Hawk asked him what was going on, and the messenger told him that he had spotted about 200 enemy troops halfway up the Beverly Mountains. Hawk was disappointed hearing this, as he had heard that they would be facing 300. He said that it would be a breeze, and Ramsay said that losing because of carelessness was not funny. Dany asked the messenger how much longer until they engaged. The messenger said that the enemy troop was resting as well, so at the earliest in an hour, and at the latest they should see them in 3. Dany told the messenger to fall back and rest. He looked worried and just then got kicked in the side by Hawk, who told him that if he was this tense now, he would not last until the real deal. He told him to get the soldiers ready as he was counting on him and called him sergeant. Dany listened to him and left. Ramsay asked Hawk what he thought and if they stood a chance. He told him that they should be fine in numbers, but they would not know until they tried. Ramsay said that his uncertainty was oddly reassuring. Dany returned, telling Hawk that he had given the troops the order to prepare for deployment. Hawk said that they should do a final check. He told everyone that he would take the overall command. Dany had 20 regular troops and Ramsay was leading 10. He said that he would command the remaining 50 mercenaries they had brought along. He told them to follow the overall orders and the rest was up to their judgment. Ramsay said no matter how many times he heard it, that plan was still very vague, and Hawk told them not to worry as that fort could hold off the enemy with just the mercenaries, and he knew they would not pull any dumb stunts. He said that they should get this started. Paul and his troop arrived, and he was surprised to see a fortress built in such a short time. Veronica came and told him that the bridge of the fortress was already raised, so to breach, they would need to build another bridge or cross the moat. Paul asked her what they should do, and Veronica said that she had heard there were no seasoned soldiers over there, so perhaps they could take a shot, and it seemed that their reinforcements had not arrived. Paul understood and said they would advance as they had planned. As they marched ahead, Paul halted them, saying they should set their formation from that position. Just then, an arrow flew by Paul's face, barely missing him. He was shocked by this and told his troop to fall back a bit and get away from the fortress. He wondered why arrows could reach them from that distance. He looked at a giant tower and wondered if that could be the reason. On the top of the tower, Ramsay was there with an archer. With a smile on his face, he said that their range was more than enough. Arrows flew farther when they were shot from high places, and with the height they had, 3 people was the limit and accuracy dropped. Creating a barrage with projectiles was enough. He told the troops below him that this was their chance. Paul was absolutely frustrated by this, saying that Ramsay was mocking them. Veronica tried to calm him down, but he told his troops to charge ahead and get Ramsay's head. The archers held their arrows as Hawk told them not yet, and to wait until they were close enough to fire. After a few moments, he commanded them, and the rain of arrows dropped onto the soldiers. Dany told them to keep firing and not to let them get close to the fortress. Hawk asked Dany where Ramsay was, and Dany told him that they were on guard against ambushes from the rear and sides. Hawk complimented him, saying he was crafty. Soldiers were dying left and right, and Veronica told Paul that they would be wiped out like this, so they needed to retreat. Paul had no choice but to listen to her and commanded his soldiers to fall back. They retreated into the forest, and Veronica told him that in the first battle they had lost 50 men combined, so they did not have enough troops to surround the fortress. Paul asked her if there was any good plan, and she told him that a classic move would be a night raid. Paul asked her if she really thought that would work, and after thinking for a while she said it would. She said that they should consider retreating for now, as their intel on Bartlett's territory was wrong. She said that breaking that fortress with their current forces was nearly impossible. Paul agreed and thought, what if they ignored the fortress and attacked the village? But he then corrected himself that the village and Rugel territory were his, so plundering them would make no sense. Paul said that he needed to think it over for at least a night. In the night, Veronica was woken up by a sudden noise, and it was Hawk and his mercenaries, telling the soldiers that their judgments were too soft and asking them if they thought they would not launch a night raid. Veronica told the troops not to panic, as they had numbers so they should stick together. Hawk heard this and said that if they stuck together, they would be at a disadvantage. He told his mercenaries to stir things up and then retreat. Back at the camp, Hawk returned, and Ramsay complimented him for it, asking what they had seen from the enemy camp. Hawk told him that they were no good as their morale was dropping, and soon they would fall apart. Ramsay then told Hawk to tell the soldiers to take a nap as they would make a morning charge. Dany came in asking if that was necessary. Ramsay, with no emotion on his face, said that if they were going to do this, they had to hit them hard. Dany was worried, but Hawk was nonchalant. Ramsay knew he had to settle his grudge with Paul here, and the difference in decisiveness was closing in on Paul. Hawk said that he got Dany's worries, but reckless moves could have led to heavy losses from then. though they would likely retreat soon, so they should have given them a good whack on the way out. He said that his squad and Ramsay's would pursue them while Dany defended the fort. It was then the morning of the 2nd of April, and a messenger came to Ramsay, telling him that the enemy was starting to prepare for retreat. Hawk told his soldiers to prepare for a charge. He asked them if they had rested well, and they said yes. He told Dany that he was coming too, as the Lord's squad must have been around. He said that they would take them out before splitting up, and Dany agreed. They gathered the soldiers and marched ahead. Hawk finally spotted them and pointed out that it looked like there were 30 of them left. Veronica stood there, brave and confident, with her fellow soldiers by her side. Hawk told Dany, Ramsay, and other soldiers to show them no mercy, cut them down without hesitation, and focus only on the enemy in front of them. He commanded them to charge, and they all charged ahead, scaring Veronica's forces. Hawk told them to surrender and he would spare their lives. He continued, saying that anyone who did not want to die should drop their weapons. Many of Veronica's soldiers surrendered, begging Hawk to spare their lives. Veronica was shocked to see this, and Hawk said they were in the clear and told Ramsay they were heading forward. Ramsay said that his squad would be there soon. As he turned around, he noticed Veronica still standing her ground, telling soldiers not to come any closer, as she would fight until the end. Ramsay recognized her and told the soldiers to fall back. He introduced himself to Veronica as the commander of that army and said that he could see that she was a renowned commander. Veronica introduced herself as the captain of Baron Borden's forces and said she would like to have a word with him. Ramsay apologized, saying that he could not accept a one-on-one duel and he would have preferred if she surrendered quietly, and he would guarantee her safety. She still stood her ground after this. Ramsay thought to himself that she was a troublesome opponent, and while they were at it, they might have escaped with Paul. He told Dany that they were switching roles and they would protect the fort, so he should go support Hawk. Dany understood and gathered his squad to chase after Hawk. Ramsay said that he could take time with her, but asked her to take a moment to look around her. She saw that all that was left were defeated soldiers and corpses. He told her that she did not stand a chance against him. Veronica reluctantly agreed and surrendered. When Dany's squad caught up to Hawk, he saw that he was done with the fighting. Hawk told him that the enemy commander had managed to escape and they could not do anything now. In that battle, Paul's forces under Baron Borden had been routed. Including the dead and the fleeting, they had been reduced to 20 soldiers. Paul himself had barely escaped to the Baron's capital, Boston, and thus, the first battle concluded with a decisive victory for Bartlett's army. At the border between Baron Borden's territory and Count Hendrick's land, Gilbert stood there on a horse with soldiers beside him. He told his fellow soldiers to take care of their lives, and for then, they should have just kept that deadlock going. He thought to himself that Darrell had said it, but it had been 3 days of that indecision, and he wondered if everything was really okay. Just then, a soldier came and informed Gilbert that a messenger from the Bartlett territory had just arrived. Gilbert said he would swing by to see Darrell. When he entered a tent, he saw Darrell and Oliver there and asked what was going on in Bartlett. Oliver told him it was nice to see him. Darrell told them that the messenger had said Ramsay and his crew had achieved a complete victory. Gilbert was happy hearing this, saying that Ramsay had got some guts. He asked what the next move was, and Oliver said that he had been pinning down the Baron's troops there to prevent reinforcements from moving in. Suddenly, Darrell started to laugh loudly, confusing Oliver and Gilbert. He said that the status quo it was, which shocked Gilbert. He explained that they would keep attacking just enough to keep the enemy pinned down without needing to take the fort. The scene shifted to Ramsay, and he raised his cup and said they should toast to that victory. Everyone raised their cups and cheered, celebrating their victory. Dany came to Ramsay and asked what they were doing next. Ramsay told him that it all depended on Hawk. Hawk was drunk and joked that he was the chosen one. Ramsay asked him about the future, how the Black Eagle Corps was, and whether they were still good to go. Hawk said they were, and he would keep raking it in. Ramsay smiled and said he would like to ask for the next job right away, shocking Hawk. After a while, he approached Veronica, who had her hands bound and restrained. He asked her if she was all right, and she screamed at him, saying if he was going to kill her, just get it over with. Ramsay told her to relax, as he was not planning to kill her just yet. He asked her if she had mentioned being a captain, but whether she was nobility or a merchant. Veronica ignored him, saying that if he was not going to kill her, he could at least take her captive and do as he pleased. Ramsay saw that she was not listening to a word he said and thought he just had to wait until she cooled down. As he was about to leave, he heard her stomach growling and asked if they could negotiate. After a while, he opened her binds and gave her something to eat. He asked her if she would tell him about herself. She introduced herself, saying she was Veronica, she was 20, and she was a captain under Baron Borden. She told him that she had been born to the head of the Mossman Trading Company and his concubine in Borden territory. Ramsay heard that she was from a good family and told her that he would demand a ransom from Baron Borden, and then she would be free as a bird. Veronica smiled sadly, saying that the Baron would not pay a ransom, and neither would her father, Mossman. Both of them would have rather spent money on goods than paid for her. Ramsay realized that this complicated things, as keeping her a captive would not come cheap. Veronica told him that she was prepared as a soldier and suggested that he could sell her to a slave trader. He asked her if she wanted to be a slave, and she got angry at this, telling him not to be ridiculous as who would want to be a slave. He then asked her what she wanted to do. She almost cried at that question and said that she really just wanted to go home. Ramsay said that made sense and stood up, saying he would do what he could to get her back home. Veronica was taken aback by his kindness. The scene shifted to a meeting between Mossman, the head of the Mossman Trading Company, and Costello. Mossman said they were in quite the predicament and asked if it was Lord Paul from that Marquis family who had lost spectacularly and fled in disgrace. Costello complimented him, saying he still had sharp ears and losing 200 soldiers was a catastrophic blunder. He told him that Paul was currently under house arrest there. Mossman said that the reinforcement from Count Gardel had been 1,500 strong, so no amount of gold would be enough. Costello looked at him worriedly. Mossman asked him what brought him today, and Costello took out a letter, saying that a swift horse had just arrived with a request from General Holland at Fort Code. It said that they had captured Veronica and 20 others in Bartlett territory. They had to pay a ransom to get them back. Mossman said he would love to see Costello pay up as a lord, and Costello apologized, saying that he could not pull from empty pockets, and thanks to Paul, he now had to pay condolence money to 180 soldiers' families. They both looked at each other intently, and Mossman said that if they abandoned the captives, it would not look good for him as a lord. Costello said it was of no worry, as they could pretend they knew nothing, and that was why he had assigned the military's disgrace to this task. He thought to himself that Veronica was a different case, as she had been a capable individual who rose through hard work, not just family connections. He wondered if he could manage to pay for Mossman's daughter's ransom. Mossman said that they had no choice but to give up. Costello was surprised by this and asked him if he was saying he would not cover the ransom, and Mossman told him that his trading company had already lent so much, and his own pockets were threadbare. Costello thought to himself that to Mossman she was just a bastard child. Just then, a soldier came barging through the door. Costello told him that they had guests and asked what was going on. The soldier said that it was an urgent message and told him that the village of Az on the east side was under attack. Costello was shocked by this and asked if the border lord's army had moved, and the soldier denied it, informing him that the enemy was Bartlett's army. Costello could not believe it. Bartlett's army was being led by Hawk, who told his soldiers to burn the village down and take everything. He told them not to worry about fleeing villagers and to loot as much as they could. Ramsay had told them that Az village, right at the foot of the Beverly Mountains, belonged to the Baron, and so he wanted Hawk and the others to hit there first. Hawk told others that after they grabbed food and valuables, they would skedaddle, so no dawdling. He then saw Dany looking worried and comforted him, telling him to make sure he was watching closely as this was war. He told him that normally he would take the villagers back, especially the young women and children, but not this time. He said that it was not out of mercy, but they would just be a burden. He asked Dany if he understood, and Dany agreed, slapping himself to focus and telling the soldiers that it was time to pull out. Hawk thought to himself that it might be tough on Dany, but he needed to be prepared for leading troops in the future. He was glad that at least the first battle had not been a total loss. The scene shifted to Baron Borden's army general, Holland, who was angry that a messenger had told him that Borden wanted him to pull troops from the front. He said that it was impossible and asked what Baron Borden was thinking. He said that their troops were exhausted from the relentless assaults, and they still did not know the border lord's intention. The messenger told him that at this rate, the enemy from the east would ravage their lands. Holland asked the messenger how many troops he wanted, and he told him that he needed about 300. Holland thought to himself that it was not a catastrophic number, but anything could happen. Holland agreed to send 200 soldiers. The messenger said he understood his situation, but he urgently requested the dispatch. Holland got frustrated by this and wondered what Count Hendrik was plotting. The scene shifted to Gilbert and Darrell, where Gil asked him how long he planned to keep this stalemate. Darrell told him to stop saying ridiculous stuff and said he would keep this until they won, obviously. Gilbert got angry at this and said he was asking if they could actually win this. Oliver tried to calm him down and Darrell asked him what he thought. Oliver said that he did not think they needed to panic yet, but the longer this dragged on, the more it would cost, so they needed to be cautious with their supplies. Darrell said he had stocked up just in case. Just then, a soldier came inside their tent and whispered something to Darrell. After he was done, Darrell said that things seemed to be progressing better than expected and told him to prepare for a full-scale attack. Back in Bartlett territory, a messenger came to inform Ramsay that Darrell had ordered them to reduce the enemy troops at that pace. Ramsay told Hawk and Dany that the Count still desired to ravage the village. Hawk called Darrell greedy while Dany looked unsure. Ramsay said that this time it would not go so smoothly as defensive forces would be dispatched. They had already taken down the nearest Asu village, so he said they should target Mocha village, Pina village, or Todo village. He said that the enemy would anticipate nearby villages. Dany asked where they actually aimed, as they could not crush them all at once. Ramsay thought about how they should trick the enemy and suggested that they deliberately go after the capital, Boston. Dany was shocked by this and Hawk laughed, saying that it was an interesting idea, but it was not practical as their own losses would be severe. Hawk then suggested Fermi, the second largest city. Dany said that he had heard that it was the commercial hub of the barony, and it was a part that would be a pain to hit, but asked if this place was not dangerous. Hawk then said that they would create a ruckus there and then attack Gauze village. Just then Veronica called them out. They were confused, asking her what had happened, and she told them to at least discuss strategy in another room and asked what they thought she was. Ramsay laughed at this, apologizing and saying that this fortress could not afford any leeway. He asked her what she thought about the Baron's army's movements. Veronica smugly asked if he thought she, an enemy soldier, would answer that. Ramsay told her that there had still been no word from the enemy base. Veronica looked sad and disappointed. They left the room, and Ramsay told Dany that they should finalize the plan and execute it that night. Dany asked if it was not too rushed, and Ramsay agreed, saying he thought this would settle things. That night in Fermi, the elite of the Black Raven Brigade initiated a diversion. 200 reinforcements from the Baron's army headed to suppress them. In the meantime, Bartlett's main forces attacked Gauze village, located on the opposite side. Then Count Hendrik's forces began their full-scale assault, fully prepared. Costello asked his minister if that was the current state of the battle and said he could not ask for more troops from the front lines. The minister said it was tough, as they could launch a full-scale attack during troop rotations, and they had been holding their ground, but they were gradually losing ground. Costello wondered what to do should he request reinforcements from Count Gardel. But he quickly rejected the idea, as even if they sent them, it would take too long to arrive, and while all this was happening, the village was burning down. He told his minister to send a peace envoy to Count Hendrik. On the 5th of April, at Fort Code, Darrell and Ramsay met Costello and Holland as negotiations for peace began among the four parties. Ramsay noticed Baron Borden and beside him General Holland, the esteemed representative of Count Gardel. He then saw Paul being restrained by soldiers. Borden spoke first, saying he apologized for this conflict and was truly sorry, as they too had been misled by Paul. Darrell smiled and said that he could only imagine the turmoil in his heart, however, that did not concern them. He told them that the fact remained that they had repeatedly dismissed their requests and mobilized their forces. Borden asked him what he meant by that, and Darrell explained that he would like to acknowledge the Gorda Plain as part of his border lord's territory. And as for compensation, 200,000 rubella seemed fair. Holland stopped him, repeating that this war had arisen from a misunderstanding and asked him if, had he gathered evidence and confronted Baron Borden, this could have been prevented. Ramsay thought to himself that Holland did have a point, and the border lord had deliberately refrained from military action. He said that Lord Rugel was his vassal, so his son should have been handed over without delay, and it was not for those who had neglected their duties to dictate terms to them. Holland said that if they were talking about responsibilities, Hendrik, the border lord, should also bear blame for poorly managing his vassal, and asked how he planned to take responsibility for this. Ramsay realized that they had reached an impasse and asked Baron Borden what compensation he thought was proper. Borden said that 50,000 rubella as compensation seemed reasonable. Darrell got angry at this, got up, and said the negotiations had broken down. He told his guard to send a swift horse to Gilbert at the front lines and ordered the entire army to charge immediately. Holland stopped him, thinking to himself that a renewed battle under these conditions was absurd, as without enough troops and decent commanders, the fort was sure to fall. He wondered if only the Baron had paid attention to both military and finances. Holland told Darrell he understood and said they should settle this with the cession of Gorda Plain. Borden was shocked by this, and Darrell said that a loan was enough. Holland said the compensation would be 50,000 rubella. Darrell cut down to 150,000, but Holland agreed to make it a clean 100,000. He told Darrell to wrap this up for both sides, and Darrell agreed, asking if Baron Borden was satisfied with this. Borden agreed, and Holland smiled, saying they should sign this treaty and call it a ceasefire. Just then, Ramsay told them to wait a moment and said he had not finished negotiating yet. Everyone was stunned by this. Darrell laughed, and Holland called him a little brat, saying he was not welcome there. Ramsay said that was an amusing thing to say, as if this war had been born from a misunderstanding. Then that made him, the one who was attacked first, the greatest victim of all. And yet he claimed that he was not invited to the negotiating table. Holland was speechless, and Ramsay asked him how he planned to make amends for that. After a brief moment of silence, Holland said that he would hand over the root cause of all this, Paul, and they would settle this peacefully. Ramsay and Paul shared a look. Ramsay told him he had no use for that, stunning both Holland and Borden. He explained to himself that he was not a warrior, he was a lord. So he prioritized practical benefits over honor, and Paul's capture held no value for his people, so he could not accept such an offer. Borden asked if the fact that Paul had ravaged their lands was not enough, and Ramsay explained that it was the work of mercenaries hired by the Baron of the Border. So unfortunately, he would not see a single rubella from it. Ramsay thought to himself that it was half a lie, as the shares with Hawk's Black Heron Group had been settled before the conflict began. But he knew there was no need to be brutally honest about it here. Borden then said that Ramsay could take the Beverly Mountains in full, and that should suffice. Ramsay asked if he could have the foothills too, and Borden denied it, saying just the mountains. Ramsay thought to himself that this seemed like a decent compromise. Ramsay told them that if they could give him a written agreement that they would not be held responsible for landslides or anything like that, and Borden agreed. Ramsay then brought up the ransom for the captured Captain Veronica and her 20 subordinates, and Borden quickly dismissed it, saying that if he did not return the captive, then that was fine. Ramsay was shocked by this and told him that they all wished to return and asked if the captain was not invaluable to his forces. Borden explained that paying the reparations all at once was impossible, and so there was no way they could pay the ransom as well. Ramsay realized that there was no support from Veronica's father and the Mosman Trading Company. Holland sighed and said that if they had come to an agreement, then they should sign a ceasefire. Darrell and Borden signed a document and shook hands. Darrell told Ramsay that he would return to the front and told him to take command back to his territory. Ramsay agreed. Holland asked Costello what would happen to Paul, and Costello told him to dispose of him. Ramsay shared a look back at his brother and said his goodbyes in his head. Paul bit his lip as he accepted his defeat. On that day, only a single abandoned corpse was left on the Gorda Plains. Back in Bartlett's territory, Dany greeted him and welcomed him back happily, saying they had done it. Ramsay said that he had not said anything, but Dany asked him if the war was over, and Ramsay said yes. Dany went away, saying he needed to report their victory to everyone. Hawk came and asked what the terms of the ceasefire were, and Ramsay told him that the Baron gave up the Gorda Plains and paid 100,000 rubella, and all he got was the Beverly Mountains. Hawk said that sounded about right and gave him the list of spoils. After reading for a while, Ramsay told him that he would take food, textiles, and some ironware, and all other valuable items Hawk could take. Hawk called him a reasonable commander and said that it worked for him. He left saying that he would arrange it right away and told him the lady was waiting for him in his room. When Ramsay went to his room, he saw Veronica waiting. She got excited seeing Ramsay, but after looking at his face, she realized that it had not worked out for her and said it was fine as she knew this would happen. She lay down on the bed, telling him to feel free to kill or sell her as he pleased, or would he like to enjoy her body instead? Ramsay looked at her and asked if she was not considering joining him. Veronica was surprised by this, and Ramsay said he could not bear to sell her, so he wanted her to serve him as his vassal. Veronica declined, saying that her subordinates were here and she could not save herself and turn her subordinates into slaves. Ramsay smiled and offered her two choices. If she refused, he would sell everyone to the slavers, and if she worked there, he promised to release the other captives. Veronica looked at him emotionally and then bowed down in front of him, saying her name was Veronica and she vowed her loyalty to Sir Bartlett. Ramsay took his sword out and touched her shoulder to signal her appointment. Another one discarded as useless had joined the ranks. Dany was celebrating his victory with others and having a party. Ramsay came and saw everyone having a great time. Eric asked him to join them, but Ramsay declined, saying he would catch up later. It had been a few days since the peace talks at the Gorda Plains. The crisis had passed, and it was a festival in the territory. With Paul's poor reputation as the Rugel heir, the merger with the Bartlett territory was going smoothly. Willie and Kathy came with a barrel of kvass and told everyone that it was a treat from the Lord, so if they wanted some kvass, they should line up. Many people did, and Ramsay was happy to see it, thinking to himself that they had won and had kept these smiles. His hand was still shaking. It was his first battle. Fighting had been scarier than he thought, as it was a world unimaginable from his peaceful past life. But moving forward, he had to keep fighting to protect this territory because that was his responsibility as the Lord. Just then Johnny came, clearly drunk. He told Ramsay that he was truly grateful for the kvass, and Ramsay told him it was all due to his efforts. Johnny said he would keep doing his best, and Ramsay told him to enjoy himself. When Johnny asked if he was going to be drunk, Ramsay declined, saying there was a mountain of tasks ahead. He returned to his office and saw the tasks. First, he had to inspect the mountain land he had acquired. He decided to leave that to Rogers and the logging crew. They also needed to start planting crops soon, as securing a stable food supply was a challenge, and he thought they should build a large granary. And they needed to train the soldiers for the future. Just then Dany came, asking if he was still working on a day like that. Dany offered Ramsay a drink, saying it was a victory celebration so he should have a drink with them. Ramsay agreed and started drinking. Dany was glad that they had made it through. Ramsay agreed, saying they really had and he owed a lot to Dany. Dany told him to stop and said they were close. They both looked out the window and saw all the citizens happy. Dany said it had been tough, but he was glad that they had fought. Ramsay agreed and Dany left, telling him to stop by later. Ramsay was glad that Dany had come to check on him. He looked out the window and saw two children singing and waving at him. He said they would do their best and protect that view for the future. On the 21st of April, Ramsay was about to leave and asked Veronica if she was ready. She told him that they had 6 barrels of kvass transported and her men were ready for escort. Ramsay thanked her and she asked him if that was all they were going for to Hendo's. Ramsay denied it, saying they should greet Darrell first. Ramsay arrived at Hendrik's mansion and Darrell greeted him. Ramsay congratulated him on the victory. Darrell told him it was all thanks to his efforts, and Ramsay said he was too kind. He told Darrell that he must go as he had matters to attend to. As he was about to leave, Darrell called him and told him to come by again that night. Ramsay was confused by that. He met Veronica outside and she welcomed him. As they left, Veronica saw a lot of people outside the mansion and said that the border lord's estate was packed with people. Ramsay explained that after winning the war and expanding territories, it seemed many merchants and nobles were eager to curry favor now. He told Veronica that he had been told to drop by earlier and asked her if she had any idea why. She told him she could not really say. They came to Colin's trading company and Ashley acknowledged him. Ramsay called him rude and Ashley apologized, asking what was going on that day. Ramsay said he thought he could have him buy the wine they had made in their territory. Ashley took the bottle and tasted it. He asked Ramsay how much he thought the wine could sell for. Ramsay said around 3 to 5 rubella. Ashley told him that he thought it was worth about 3 rubella, and that meant their buying price was 1 rubella per cup. He saw that Ramsay had brought it in a big barrel and said that they could add some color and sell it for 2,000 per barrel. Ramsay thought about it and said they did not need to turn it into cash like last time and asked if he had a loom and livestock. Ashley agreed, saying they had everything. The loom was 3,000 rubella, goats were 4,000, and chickens were 3,000. Ramsay suggested how about he trade a pair of chickens and a loom for 4 barrels of wine. He thought to himself that asking for a 1,000 rubella discount was a bit much. Ashley asked about the other 2 barrels, and this caught Ramsay by surprise. Ashley said that if he was planning on selling the other barrels, then he would give him 1 loom and 1 rooster with 2 hens. That way he could buy all 6. Ramsay agreed that it was an equal amount but asked why. Ashley explained that quarter's sales figures looked troubling. Ramsay heard this and agreed to the deal, saying that the price was fine. Ashley was happy about this, saying that it helped them, and left, saying he would make arrangements right away. Just then, Veronica came and whispered in Ramsay's ear, scaring him. He told her not to whisper in his ears like that, and she apologized. She asked him if that was okay and said that if she had negotiated better, she could have gotten better terms. Ramsay said that might be true, but he would likely rely on Colin's trading company in the future, so it was a give and take. Veronica agreed, saying connections with merchants were important. Ashley came, apologizing for keeping them waiting, and told him that he would have the arrangements by tomorrow morning and would prepare some young and lively chickens. He told him to stop by before he headed home. They left and Ashley waved them goodbye. He told Veronica that the soldiers who came with them would get a free night and asked what about her. She told him that she would be coming with him as she was his bodyguard after all. Ramsay noted her difference in attitude from when she had been a prisoner. He asked her if they should head back to the border lord's estate. He hoped that they would not throw unreasonable demands at him. He arrived at the mansion and saw that it was filled with people. Ramsay and Veronica both got scared by this as he realized that it was a victory party. He wondered what the border lord was thinking, inviting someone like him to such an event. He saw high-class people talking among themselves. Just then Darrell came and said it was good to see him. He told him to take his time and enjoy. Veronica was uncomfortable, and she told Ramsay that she was not used to places like that. Ramsay shoved a hot dog in her mouth and told her that he could not read Darrell's intentions, but it was a party after all, so they should not worry about the surroundings and enjoy the delicious food. They both enjoyed themselves eating food, and then an announcement came, saying they would hear a few words from Darrell. He came on the stage and thanked everyone for gathering that day for someone as inexperienced as him. He said that he owed that victory at Goda Plains to all of them and his outstanding comrades. He said that he would like to express his gratitude to them and thank them. He first mentioned Gilbert of the Berkeley family and said he had bravely fought on the front lines and taken down many enemy soldiers. He then thanked Oliver of the Lloyd family and said that he had taken charge of the logistics and managed supplies from the rear end. And finally, he mentioned Ramsay Bartlett, saying he was the true hero of that victory. Ramsay was taken aback by that sudden mention of him. Darrell said that Ramsay had painted a vivid picture of the entire battle for them, and without him, they would never have secured the Goda Plain. Ramsay sat there awkwardly as Darrell told everyone to give Ramsay the highest praise. Gilbert and Oliver laughed at this, while Veronica cutely clapped for him. He asked the three of them to step forward and come onto the stage. They all did so, and Ramsay was nervous about the speech out of the blue. Gilbert and Oliver gave good speeches, and when they were done, Darrell asked Ramsay if he could count on him. Ramsay thought to himself that he just needed to finish this without making a scene and stay as forgettable as possible. He started his speech and introduced himself as Ramsay Bartlett. He said that this victory belonged to Duke Hendrik and also to the Lords and Gilbert and Oliver. He apologized for his shortcomings and said he would strive to further hone his skills to assist Darrell. He was done and felt unwell after the speech. Veronica noticed this and told the maid that her lord was feeling unwell and she wanted to help. She asked if they could find a room somewhere and the maid gave them a private room. Ramsay let out a heavy sigh, saying what a dilemma he was in. Veronica was confused, asking if it wasn't good that Duke Hendrik and the other nobles acknowledged him. Ramsay explained that right then, the royal family was split between the Duke of Ignes and Prince Emil's factions, and the Duke of Ignes was a supporter of the Baron. So, in other words, he had been forced to publicly declare himself as a supporter of Baron Hendrik and by extension of the Duke's faction. He said he never intended to side with either faction. He realized what was done and thought to himself that to maintain balance, he needed to establish some connections with the prince's faction. In the early morning, he left the mansion. Anthony asked if he was leaving that early, and Ramsay confirmed this, thanking him for letting him stay the night. He told him to give his regards to Darrell. Anthony said he understood and told him to feel free to visit anytime, and he was an invaluable companion to them. Ramsay awkwardly thanked him. As they left, they met Ashley, who greeted them and asked if he was ready and said he should take it back right away. Ramsay agreed, saying that place was scary and he wanted to go home. Ashley realized that it was about the previous day's victory party and said it seemed his lord was also there, and everyone was buzzing about Ramsay. They knew he was his guest and they were already freaking out. Ramsay saw that information about him was already spreading throughout the town. Ashley prepared a cart with all that was promised and discussed. Ramsay thought to himself that he wanted to develop the territory as much as possible before they got caught up in any more trouble. He asked Veronica what she thought they should do to increase the village population. She thought about it and said they should encourage marriage or buy slaves. Ramsay realized that it came down to needing to make money. On the 30th of April, Dany and Eric were excited to see that Ramsay was making a new drink. Ramsay explained that he wanted the two of them to try it. Eric asked if it was different from kvass, and Ramsay said that he was thinking of making a stronger drink than kvass, so he figured he would have them taste it first. Both Eric and Dany downed the glass they were given and felt a strong twinge in them. They asked what it was, and Ramsay said that the drink was 10 times stronger than kvass. They said he should have warned them first. Eric said that the drink was insane, and Dany said that was his first time trying it and asked what kind of drink it was. Ramsay explained that it was called whiskey and it was made from processed and fermented rye, then distilled to extract the alcohol. Dany realized that was why Ramsay had been buying copper and glasswork in town lately. Ramsay asked him how it tasted, and he said it was delicious. Eric tried to go for one more glass, but Ramsay kicked both of them out. They banged on the door, saying they just wanted a sip. Ramsay thought to himself that the problem with that was the amount, as he had not even extracted 1/20th of the mash he had prepared. He realized he needed a more efficient distillation method. Just then Veronica came, pushing Eric and Dany away, and told Ramsay that a messenger from Baron Hendrik had arrived. The messenger looked at Ramsay and asked if he was Lord Bartlett. Ramsay confirmed this, and the messenger threw the letter at him, saying it was a message from Count Hendrik's office, so he should read it. The messenger then left, and Veronica said that the messenger was very rude as he had not even dismounted his horse. Ramsay said that maybe he lacked a bit of authority. He opened the letter and started to read it. Veronica asked what the letter said. When Ramsay finished reading it, he immediately told Veronica to increase the training sessions from then on. He told her that it was a summons letter. The scene shifted to the head of the Morris family, Morris von Dodd. A mysterious man in a dark hood bowed to him, saying he was deeply honored to meet Count Morris. Morris called him Lord Licht and invited him for a drink and a chat. Licht denied it, saying he was not much of a drinker. Morris tried to convince him, saying he should not hold back. Just then, a beautiful woman came and took his drink, saying she would partake. Morris complimented her, saying she drank well, and asked her name. She told him she was Pamela and said it was a pleasure to get close to him. Morris was drunk and happy. Pamela got close to him, lying in his arms and comforting him. Licht asked Morris if he had made a decision, and Morris said it was a grave choice and he needed a bit more time to think. Licht expected that response as it had been the same for a while. Pamela tried to convince him, telling him not to say that as they eagerly awaited his swift participation. Morris tried to say something, but Pamela cut him off, saying she should explain carefully the benefits of joining them. She whispered in his ear that she would be his for an entire night and they would take their time. Morris got flustered by this, saying they should talk all night long. Pamela and Licht left the room, and Pamela told him that she would see him later. After they exited the room, Licht apologized to her for putting her through that. Pamela said it was a classic case of fitting the right person for the job and asked him if he had seen his eyes, and he was already halfway there and told him to leave, persuading that foolish count to her. Licht understood and said he would return and report that Count Morris of the Maduk Kingdom had turned to the Pendjura Empire. The scene shifted back to Ramsay, who was running towards Darrell's residence. In the letter, Darrell had addressed Ramsay, telling him that Duke Ignes, worried about his state, had decided to take down the traitor Morris, and that Morris was colluding with the Pendjura Empire to overthrow the state. He also wished for him to join forces as a commander, and that their victories might be shared. Ramsay arrived at the mansion and met Darrell, who said that he had never imagined he would come to visit so soon. Ramsay said he had never expected to receive such a summons from him. Darrell laughed and asked if he was surprised, and said he was quite the trickster. Ramsay said it was an honor to see that new side of him. Ramsay realized that it had been plotted since that party. He asked him when the deployment was scheduled, and Darrell told him that it was in mid-May and they would dispatch 1,500 troops, led by previously introduced Jorg. Ramsay thought to himself that there was still time so he could prepare properly. He asked what about the other nobles, and Darrell said that Duke Ignes would be present, along with Count Ronald and Viscount Denys. He said that if it worked out, Marquis Lure would push the total over 10,000 soldiers. He told him that Ramsay would operate under his command. Ramsay asked if there would be rewards prepared, and he told him, of course, the lands of the counts that would be abolished would be redistributed based on merit. Ramsay said that receiving a plot of land at the far western edge would not help him much. Darrell said he understood and he intended to repay him in other ways, but for that, significant efforts were needed. He told him to prepare 100 soldiers from the Bartlett territory. Ramsay was shocked to hear this. Darrell repeated himself, telling Ramsay to prepare 100 soldiers and then he would grant him some authority. He remembered Veronica telling him that she could mobilize about 50 troops right away. He knew that doubling the troops in a month was impossible, but it was not a question of can you. He knew Darrell wanted him to make it happen. Ramsay asked him if he could also get in touch with the Black Raven Guild. Darrell agreed but said that if he was hiring mercenaries, then it would come out of his own pocket this time. Ramsay said he agreed and thought to himself that war cost money and he never thought he would feel it like this. Darrell said that he would tell him their base location. He put directions on a piece of paper and said he hoped he negotiated well. After a while, Ramsay arrived at the location and saw a giant door. He thought to himself that places like these always attracted unsavory characters, but he knew he could not afford to be picky. He entered and saw Hawk wiping glasses. He recognized Ramsay and welcomed him. Ramsay asked him what he was doing, and Hawk told him that this was where he ran his bar. Hawk asked if he had something for him and told him to have a seat, and he would get him some milk. After finishing the drink, Ramsay told him that he wanted the Black Raven Guild's help again. Hawk asked what it was this time, and Ramsay showed him the letter. Hawk read it and realized that the Duke personally called for Ramsay. Ramsay told him that he wanted 100 soldiers ready, and Hawk said that it was quite a lot and hiring all of them would cost a pretty penny. Ramsay said he knew, and he needed 70 of them from the Black Raven Guild. Hawk thought about it and said it was about 100 rubara per person. Ramsay calculated it would be 7,000 rubara and asked when he should bring it. Hawk told him that there was no need to rush, and they should see if he could gather the numbers. He said that he would contact him in a few days so he could go to him. He threw him out of the bar. Ramsay saw that there was nothing more he could do, so he decided to head back, but realized he should reach out to Ashley. After arriving back, he knew that he was short on cash and he had nothing. He had received a hefty 50,000 rubara from the Duke. But after taking in Veronica and her soldiers, plus the mercenary fees for Hawk and the gear for Ashley's troop, it was 300 rubara, and that was just for one person. Considering everything, his funds were below half, and he needed to reassess the production in the territory. Just then, there was a knock on the door, and it was Veronica. She said that he locked himself in as soon as she returned and asked what the status was on the deployment. Ramsay told her that they were expected to send 100 troops to march towards Count Morris's territory by mid-May. Veronica was shocked to hear this and said that it was quite a lot. As for a viscount, even 20 would have been enough. She asked him how he planned to gather such a large number. He told her that he could not manage this internally, so he asked the Black Raven Guild to build. As soon as Ramsay said this, something clicked in his head and he slammed his hand on his face, saying he had been played and that was why. He put his head down in disappointment, and Veronica asked him what he meant. Ramsay told her that he thought it was odd to pay 50,000 rubara up front, and they handed over that huge sum just to use him like this, blocked his escape and forced him to the battlefield. And naturally, he needed to rely on the mercenaries. He knew that the Black Raven Guild would return part of the money to the Duke. Ramsay realized that he was being played from the start. He stopped himself, saying there was no point in being sad. He told Veronica that he had asked the Black Raven Guild to send 70 members. Veronica said she understood, and they should select the 30 who would deploy. Ramsay then told her that she and Dany were on standby. She was shocked by this and asked why. He told her that he needed the two of them to defend this territory so he would lead the troops. Veronica asked if something happened to him, but Ramsay cut her off, saying that they should make sure that did not happen, and he told her to handle the troop selection and training. After a bit of hesitation, she agreed, telling him to leave that to her. She left angrily, and Ramsay wondered how they should proceed this time. It was the 17th of May, and Hawk met Ramsay, asking if the Lord himself would lead the troops. Ramsay said they should definitely be on the winning side, as Duke Ignis's anti-Imperial forces were around 10,000. Meanwhile, the Count's side had a staggering 1,000 troop deficit. Hawk said he agreed, but they could not read the Empire's moves and wondered, would they send support to Count Morris, and they might already have had reinforcements converging. Ramsay was unsure about this. Darrell then saw Ramsay and thanked him for coming, saying he appreciated it. Ramsay and Hawk bowed down in front of him. Darrell said that his Hendrik border army started westward 2 days ago. Ramsay said they would surely crush the traitors and then stood up, saying the Bartlett troop would set off. The army marched ahead. Hawk said that they needed to rendezvous with General Jorg first, as if they headed straight down this road, they should reach the Count's territory. He asked Ramsay if he had prepared a horse, and he said he did not have that kind of money, thanks to some clever scheming. Hawk laughed at this, asking what he was talking about. Ramsay put that aside for now and asked him what he thought was the smartest move. Ramsay said that for him, the safest and most profitable option was, and Hawk cut him off, saying it was looting the surrounding towns and villages. Ramsay knew that this would likely turn into that kind of battle, which was why he did not bring Dany and Veronica, as Dany was completely exhausted from that last battle, probably due to this kind of fighting. Hawk agreed with the tactic but asked how they should approach it. He said that if they kept attacking at will, his reputation would suffer. Ramsay said that he did not know all the nobles involved in this war, but if their pride was high, no one would want to play that role. He said that if they said they were forced into this, and that was what they were ordered to do, maybe they could change. Hawk agreed and said that from his angle, this looked like a winning battle, but the lords would be eager to claim their glory at the main camp. He patted Ramsay on the back and told him to strike first and hard. Ramsay said that even though they served the border duke, they should have the authority of independent forces, so they would have to strong-arm the general into agreeing. Just then an idea popped into his head and he asked Hawk if he had a map. Hawk gave him the map and asked him if he was plotting something. Ramsay confirmed this, saying they should call off merging with the border duke's army. Hawk asked if this was really okay, as this was a direct order from the duke. Ramsay said that they had been played too long and it was time for a little payback. At the front lines, the general of Hendrik's army was angry, asking what the Bartlett army was doing. He and the other viscounts were there waiting for them. One viscount said that perhaps they should not have summoned them for that battle. Another said that if they were new to their camp under the Count of the Frontier, could they even muster soldiers? Another one said that he had heard praises at the victory party earlier and asked if they had gotten overconfident. Just then, a messenger came into the tent, saying a message had arrived from Lord Ramsay. The general saw that the messenger wore the Bartlett crest and thought they had the luxury to equip themselves. He asked the messenger where the lord himself was, and it seemed that their rendezvous was delayed. The messenger dropped to one of his knees and said that he was there to report that his lord was currently under attack by the forces of Count Morris. The general was shocked to hear this, and a viscount got scared by this, saying they were supposed to win that battle. The general told them to calm down and told the messenger to report the details of what had happened immediately. The messenger told him that their army had been moving from the frontier count's territory towards there, but they had been ambushed by volunteers from Mode and Ryle villages just as they neared the count's domain. He said that his lord was fighting back and planned to seize those villages. The general said they would first advance their troops and have them join them as soon as they were done. The messenger then said that his lord intended to take the northern village and capture the city of Forte. The general was taken aback by this, and the viscounts started discussing this among themselves, saying that Forte was the second largest city in the count's domain and had a population that exceeded 1,000, so for the likes of Ramsay's army to take that down was impossible. The general asked if that was really the case and the messenger agreed. The general thought about this and said that it would not work as their forces would struggle to achieve that. He told the messenger to tell his lord to capture just the 2 villages and regroup early. The messenger then told him that his lord commanded 100 troops and had been granted the authority of an independent detachment from the frontier count. And he said with the general's power, defeating the traitor Morris will be easy, and he wished to have support from the rear. The viscounts were shocked to hear that Ramsay had 100 soldiers as they only had around 20 to 50. They wondered how such a minor noble could have had that many. The general thought to himself that the situation was troublesome, as he was not spouting nonsense that could not be discussed without the lord present, and it was backed by Lord Darrell's endorsement. The general said he understood and told the messenger that he expected great things. The messenger then left, and one of the viscounts asked him if he was really going to let them do as they pleased. The general told him that it did not matter if Bartlett's army was there or not, as the battle would not change. He said that they should also depart and join forces with Duke Ignis. He told everyone to prepare for the march. The scene then shifted to Pamela and Morris, where Morris was hiding under a blanket on his bed. Pamela asked him how long he was going to sit there, as the sun was already high in the sky. Morris was scared, saying that a large army was approaching them. Pamela told him that it would be all right, as the Count had many capable subordinates. She grabbed his face and said that the Empire's reinforcements were there. Morris then smiled at this as his mood got better. Pamela then told him not to worry about a thing and suggested they should play a little more. They started doing some stuff, and outside the room, 2 people were there on guard, Licht and Percy. Percy said that he really did not want to be subordinate to that man, even if it was temporarily. Licht told him not to say that as it was a part of the job. Percy agreed and said he did have a point. Licht said they should put in extra effort. Just then, an old man told his ministers that they should strike now, as it was pointless to hunker down when there was no hope for help. The minister argued, saying that if they just held on, reinforcements from the Empire would soon arrive, and he told his guard to fortify the defenses. One man saw Percy and Licht and asked if the Empire would send reinforcements. Percy and Licht shared a look, and Licht told him that of course they would, and the Empire was currently organizing their troops, so it was safe to fortify. The man got excited hearing this, telling his guard to fortify the business. Percy and Licht shared a smile. At the Magic Royal Castle, the Crown Prince Emil of the Magic Kingdom said that they must not send reinforcements, as negotiations were the best course. His ministers asked him if he would abandon Count Morris, who shared their ideals. Emil said that both Count Morris and Duke Ignis were vital to their people and asked who benefited from their bloodshed. He answered himself that it was the Empire, and so they absolutely must not let it turn into a conflict. His minister said that they understood his intentions but asked him how he planned to respond. He thought about it and said they would seize all of Count Morris's lands and distribute them among Duke Ignis and others. The ministers were shocked by this, saying that it only empowered the anti-Empire faction and they must show resolve or it would set a poor example, as at that rate the throne would be usurped. They said that they should use that chance to teach them a lesson with the Empire's strength, or maybe it was better to eradicate Ignis's faction entirely. Emil saw this and thought to himself that he had no interest in the throne. He just wanted a happy life with his wife and children. More troublesome sparks had emerged, but he knew that meeting would likely yield no decisions, and it would end in watching for self-preservation. The scene shifted to Ramsay and Hawk, who were hiding in the bushes. He asked Hawk what the size of the village was, and Hawk said they were at the lower end of the spectrum, and that should not be a problem with that many people. He told Ramsay that he sure had played it well, as he had made it seem like the village attacked first, so they were seizing the nearby villages as an excuse to plunder. Ramsay said that joining the main force would not bring much glory, and frankly, they did not expect much from them anyway, so it was far more reliable to move freely and gather money directly. He said that they should stick to the plan, and Hawk told him to count on him. The villagers started running as Hawk told the soldiers to strip the village of its supplies, and he told the villagers to gather in one place and not to worry, as if they did not resist, they all would be free. Ramsay thought to himself that he needed to maneuver skillfully to avoid leaving a bad reputation for Bartlett. Their plan was to first flank the village with Black Heron Gang and Bartlett's forces, take hostages to force the villagers into surrender. Meanwhile, the Black Heron Gang would gather all treasures and supplies from the village. They would secure only the food needed for the march, and the rest would go to Bartlett's territory. They attached 4 soldiers to one cart and sent back those unaccustomed to battle. Then, after the villagers had assembled at the center, the final touch was for Ramsay's speech. He apologized for it, bowing his head and shocking the villagers. He told them that he did not want to resort to such rough tactics, but he could not defy the order of Baron Hendrik. However, he did not wish to harm any of them. He told them to head to Count Morris as other villages were not safe. He again apologized. The villagers wondered if all of that had been organized by the Baron, and they agreed to go to Count Morris. Hawk saw this and called Ramsay an actor. He asked Ramsay after they took Rose Village what was next and if he was really planning to go to Forte. Ramsay thought about this, and Hawk said that he was in charge of tactics so he would not meddle in his strategy. Ramsay thanked him and said they should move on. It was now the 21st of May. In the west of the Kingdom of Majuk, in the territory of Count Morris, as planned, the anti-imperial forces of 10,000 troops had gathered. Prince Ignis himself stood at the forefront leading the army. He addressed his viscounts and counts, thanked them for gathering there, and expressed his gratitude. He said that they must have heard the news that Count Morris was in league with the Empire, and despite multiple chances to explain, Count Morris had not only ignored them but had begun to strengthen his forces. He said that they could not let this go on any longer and that they must unite this nation, beset by internal strife and external threats. Without delay, they would take down Count Morris here and now. Everyone there agreed, and a man named Rossi stepped forward and said they should get straight to the military council. He told them that the enemy's numbers were about 2,000 and they were fortifying themselves. Morris was probably counting on reinforcements from the Empire. He said that they needed to crush them before reinforcements arrived. One of the counts asked if they should launch an all-out attack immediately. Rossi told him that it would come at a great cost to them, as the Empire was lurking behind, so he wanted to minimize their losses. Another count asked what they should do. Rossi was about to say something, but he was interrupted by a soldier who told them that a messenger wished to speak with General Jorg. Jorg was hesitant to invite the messenger inside this important meeting, but Rossi said it was fine, as it could be urgent. The messenger arrived, and Jorg recognized him as Bartlett's messenger. He asked him what he wanted, and the messenger said that he had a report from his lord Ramsay, and as planned, they had attacked Mode and Rose village, but the villagers had escaped to Morisia Castle instead. Jorg was shocked by this and thought to himself that in battle chaos was the norm, and he had let them slip away. He asked the messenger why they hadn't captured the villagers, and said that sending villagers to Morris's castle only strengthened the enemy. The messenger told him that they had not captured them because they were running low on supplies. Jorg then said that they should have simply eliminated them all, and asked why he had let them go to Morris's side. The messenger said that his lord believed it would be more advantageous to take the castle. Jorg was confused by this, and Rossi asked the messenger if his lord had really said that. The messenger confirmed this, saying that they planned to continue taking nearby villages and sending the villagers to the castle. Rossi told the messenger to go away, but before leaving, he asked what his lord's name was. He told them that his lord's name was Ramsay Bartlett, the Viscount under Baron Darrell von Hendrick's command. Ignis told the messenger that he had done well and told him to leave. Rossi thought to himself about the reason for not eliminating the villagers and sending them to the enemy's castle. If they interpreted that to their advantage, that meant they were indeed going for a siege. Ramsay told the crowd that for this battle, the best strategy was to surround Count Maurice's castle and lay siege. Everyone was shocked by this, and one of the counts said that he could not agree to this as they were nobles, not common lowborns. They were true nobles with tradition and prestige, so in a shameful battle like that, their dignity would be tarnished. Ramsay heard this and thought to himself that the responsibilities of the nobility were trivial, yet it was also true that it was necessary to govern the territory. He knew that they must prioritize their prestige over practicality. Ignis asked Ramsay for an alternative, and Ramsay told the crowd that they should push through before the Imperial army joined them. He told the crowd that if this was settled, they should hurry and prepare to advance west. Ignis saw Ramsay deep in thought and asked him what was wrong and if there was something on his mind. Ramsay said that Viscount Ramsay Bartlett's insight into the battlefield and the groundwork was somewhat intriguing. The scene shifted to Hawk and Ramsay. Hawk asked him what their next move was, as they had already taken most of the villages, and the only one left nearby was Forte. Ramsay agreed, saying that they were running low on troops to transport the supplies they had seized. Ramsay recommended that they pretend to surround Forte while they waited. Hawk asked him if they could do that, as with this many people there was no way to surround them. Just then a soldier came to Ramsay, telling him that there was still some distance, but a small cavalry unit was heading their way and their affiliation was unknown. Ramsay and Hawk were both shocked by this, and Hawk told his guards to gather up and prepare to intercept. Ramsay wondered if the small unit was there for reconnaissance or a message. The unit arrived and Hawk stopped them, asking who their commanding officer was. One of the men from the unit said that they were messengers from General Jorg, a representative of Baron Hendrik. They asked if they were the army of Ramsay Bartlett, and Ramsay confirmed this, saying he was Ramsay. The messenger was surprised to see him and apologized for addressing him from horseback, and told him that the general had called for a meeting, so he should hurry up and regroup at the main camp. They told him that the main camp was southwest of there. They took their leave, and Ramsay asked Hawk what he thought. He said that as soon as they acknowledged the independent cavalry, they had called for a meeting. He said he didn't get it, but knew they had no choice but to go. He told his soldiers that the break was over and they were moving out. Ramsay wondered if there had been a change in the battle situation. After a while, he arrived at the main camp, and Hawk saw so many soldiers and people and said that the scale was impressive. One guard came and asked if Lord Bartlett was there, and Ramsay confirmed this, saying he was Ramsay. He saw the polished appearance of the guard and wondered if he was a higher noble's guard. The guard was surprised to see Ramsay and told him that Duke Ignis requested his presence and asked him to follow him. Ramsay was surprised to hear that the Duke was there and told Hawk he would leave the army to him. Hawk, who was also surprised by the Duke's arrival, told Ramsay to go ahead. After a while, they arrived outside a tent and the guard announced his presence, apologized for the intrusion, and said he had brought Lord Bartlett with him. The guard told Ramsay to go inside, and just by seeing the presence of the Duke, Ramsay bent down on his knees and introduced himself, saying he had heard he was needed, so he had hurried there. Ignis told him that he could relax as there was no need to be so stiff. He said that the one with the business was not him but Ramsay. Ramsay introduced himself as an aide to the Duke. He told Ramsay that he had several questions for him and he just needed to answer, as Ignis was a kind man and would not get angry over small things. He first asked why his army had attacked the villages. Ramsay told him that they had simply made a move to weaken the enemy. Ramsay agreed, saying that destroying the villagers and lowering production was one tactic, but asked why he had let the villagers escape. Ramsay said that even if they had conflicts, they were still subjects of the same kingdom, and given the difference in troop numbers, the victory was clear and killing them just seemed cruel. Ramsay asked shouldn't he have just enslaved them, as it would have filled his coffers and killed two birds with one stone. Ramsay said that his army lacked the resources to bring back slaves, so it was a tough decision, but they had thought it was better to spare their lives. Ramsay said they should leave it at that, as unfortunately it had not gone as he predicted and it had turned into a siege. Ramsay asked what he was getting at. Ramsay called him disingenuous and said that he had sent villagers to Mauritia Castle to hasten food consumption, anticipating that Duke Maurice would go into the siege. Ramsay smiled and said what was done and said for tomorrow's siege he would like to hear his suggestions. Ramsay asked what else they could do, as with this troop difference shouldn't they just attack aggressively. Ramsay said that would only increase their damage and he wanted to win while minimizing their losses. Ramsay thought to himself that he said that, but they had not received any military training. Ramsay said this was just one example but then suggested something. After talking for a while he left, and Ignis asked Ramsay what he thought of the current strategy. Rosi said there was room for improvement, but overall the direction seemed good. He continued, saying that for a rural lord, Ramsay was quite capable, and he expected it from Baron Hendrik to have some fine pieces. Ignis said it was not fun being shown new toys, and perhaps he should put his mark on it too. It was now the 23rd of May, and Morris was under a lot of stress. He grabbed Pamela, asking where the reinforcements were and why they were not there. She told him that she would check on that and left the room frustrated. When she went into a room, she saw Percy there and told her good job. Pamela asked her where Licht was, and she told her that they had roped him into helping the soldiers. Pamela sat down and asked if it was time to leave this place. Percy told her that she and Licht had just been discussing sneaking out that night. Pamela was taken aback by this and said she had not heard anything about that. Percy said that was because she hadn't told her and told her to do her best. Pamela got angry at this and said they should gather those jewels that they had made the Count pay for. Just then, Licht walked into the room and looked troubled. Pamela said she was glad he was safe, and Percy asked him what was wrong. He said that something felt off to him. He explained that even with dusk approaching, the Ignis forces showed no sign of retreat, and yet they kept attacking the gates without arrows. Pamela said it was quicker to break down the gates, and with so many of them they should just target the castle gates. Licht agreed, saying that the difference in numbers was overwhelming, and yet the gates remained unbreached. They had too few troops, and it was as if they did not intend to take the castle at all. Percy said that they must have been wary of the Empire's reinforcement, thinking they would come as they were holed up there. Licht asked if that was really the case. Pamela said she could not care less about their plans, and asked Licht how they would get out of there. Licht said that they were surrounded by enemies with battle raging on, so at that point, they had no choice but to blend in with the townsfolk and escape. He said that fortunately, many villagers had strangely taken refuge in that castle. Percy said that they did not have any other choice, and Pamela said she would pack things up quickly and told them to wait for her. Licht wondered what Duke's army was up to, and he realized that they seemed to have some crafty strategist in the kingdom, as they had made sure to wear them down without escalating the damage. It was now the 24th of May, and Lord Douglas and Lord Dobie were discussing the battle. Douglas said that the anti-Empire forces attacked day and night. They had split their troops, but they could not even rest probably. He said that the issue was the arrows, as the rate of consumption was too fast and their lack of proper arrows was killing them. He asked his soldiers if they had found Licht and Percy yet, and they denied it. Dobie told him it was enough already, saying they had been cornered by the Empire, and from the start, they had no intentions of sending reinforcements. They had merely been pawns to drain the kingdom's strength. He said that they must consider the future from there on out, as they could not expect reinforcements, so surrendering could be an option. He asked Douglas what he thought, and he said that if they surrendered, they all would be executed, so they would fight to the bitter end as warriors did. Dobie said they could do that, but they were dragging the townsfolk and soldiers into it too. Douglas said that if it continued, the townsfolk would become slaves, so they should fight to secure better terms for peace. Just then, a soldier came and told Douglas that the enemy was intensifying their offense, so someone needed to take command on the front lines. Douglas said he would step up and left. Dobie said to himself that as a general, they could not afford to misjudge the right moment to withdraw. He went inside the room where Morris was. Morris had wrapped himself in the blanket and was terrified to come out. Dobie told him that they should surrender as there were no reinforcements from the Empire, so they had no chance of winning. Morris refused and asked where Pamela was. Dobie grabbed Morris and slapped him, telling him to wake up as it was the middle of the war. He told him that Pamela was gone and they had been used by the Empire. Morris realized what had happened and just sat there in disappointment and betrayal. The scene shifted to Ignis and Rosi, where Ignis asked her about the situation. She told him that it had only been 2 days, but the fatigue was showing, so in 2 or 3 more days, they should be able to conquer the castle easily. Ignis said that meant Ramsay's plan had worked out. They then saw a flashback of the talk between Rosi and Ramsay, where Ramsay had suggested moving the army in 3 shifts. He had explained that they could split the army into 3 and rotate the rest to minimize their losses while continuing attacks day and night. On top of that, they were attacking without using arrows. In a siege, resupplying weapons was tough, so if they did not shoot arrows, their stock would dwindle in a few days. Ramsay had suggested that they should ease their attacks for the first 2 days, and that way, they could reduce the damage on both sides while wearing down the enemy. Back to the present, Rosi said that they had to use arrows to apply pressure on the enemies at the wall, but using arrows without tops had been effective, and if they kept it up for another 2 or 3 days, they should be careful not to let the soldiers waver. Just then, a guard entered the tent in a hurry, and reported that the enemy seemed to be showing signs of wanting to surrender. This shocked Ignes, and after a while as Ignes and other lords were sitting, Count Maurice von Dodd along with his companions arrived bound and restrained. He sat on his knees, and Ignes asked them what had happened to cause a sudden change of heart. Maurice told him that he could no longer see any chance of victory, so he could not bear to harm the people needlessly. He said that if he could save his head for this, it was a small price to pay. He and Ignes shared a look. Ignes said that he would not say anything anymore, and in light of that resolution, he promised the safety of the soldiers and townsfolk, and they would not be made slaves either. Maurice said that he had no regrets and told him to behead him. Ignes signaled his soldier, who unsheathed his sword and beheaded Maurice in a swift motion, ending him. He then covered his body with a cloak. Ignes then asked Douglas and Dobie what had been happening in the Count's territory. Dobie said that he had no intention of making excuses, as everything had been their fault, but they had merely been puppets dancing to the Empire's tune. Dobie told the entire story to him. At first, they had urged Lord Maurice to marry and they had promised to send a daughter of nobility. Though he had been somewhat interested, his bride never arrived. They had offered plausible reasons about selecting a suitable bride for the Count's house, but there had never been any real plan to begin with. 2 Imperial generals had been sent under the guise of protection. Believing their words of full support, they had decided to turn their bows against His Highness, the Prince. Yet those generals had vanished when the battle began and no bodies had been found. He said that they had probably fled, anticipating the castle's fall. They realized they had fallen into the Empire's trap, and with no reinforcements in sight, surrender seemed their only option. He told him that Lord Maurice had regretted it deeply, and he regretted that he had foolishly put his trust in the Empire's sweet words, causing unnecessary harm to his soldiers and citizens. In this case, he had had no choice but to offer his head and plead for mercy for the citizens. Ramsay heard this and thought to himself that despite infiltrating, those generals had withdrawn too easily and wondered what the Empire's aim had been to sow chaos within the kingdom. Dobie asked who had devised this strategy and if it had been the rumored genius Rosi. Rosi asked what strategy, and Dobie told her he had been talking about this seed. Being attacked day and night had truly worn him down, and using tipless arrows had annoyed him. Rosi understood what he had meant and pointed towards Ramsay, who was taken aback by this. Everyone discussed this among themselves, saying he was very young and that he had given a clever suggestion. Ramsay wondered why she had specified him. Rosi clapped her hands to demand silence and said they should move on to the next matter. Ignes said he would announce the fate of Lord Dobie and Lord Douglas shortly and told his guards to take them away. After that, he told the crowd that he would now proceed to the rewards and honors. He said that the first honor of this campaign went to General Jorg. Everyone clapped, and Ramsay thought to himself that this part felt like a setup, as after all, no one had stood out in this operation. Even if they gained the Count's land, the money and lives spent on the march would not come back. They would likely reward the more powerful nobles. After a while, Ignes said he concluded the rewards and honors, telling everyone they had done well. As people started to leave, Rosi called Ramsay, thanking him for his hard work this time. Ramsay told her that he appreciated her generous words. Rosi told him that Ignes had said he too would receive a reward and told him to follow her. Ramsay was surprised by this and followed her to meet Ignes. Ignes thanked him for his strategy, saying it was because of his strategy that they had achieved this victory with ease. Ramsay said he was flattered by his words. Ignes said that he wished to commend him with a reward, but unfortunately there were no lands around Bartlett to give him, so he gave him a bag full of gold instead. Ramsay was disappointed by this, but he accepted it. He thought to himself that to the north lay the Hendrik March and they could not hope for any land. The eastern royal domain could only be ceded by the king. To the west lay the Borden barony and they could not interfere with the southern dominion either. To enrich the land, they needed crops and the people to cultivate them. He knew he could not expand their territory any further. Ignes saw the look on his face and knew what Ramsay wanted. He told him that if he aimed for a higher goal, there might be a way. Ramsay was shocked to see that Ignes had read his face. Ignes told him that if he wanted land, he must seize it, and he should devour the Borden Baron. Ramsay was shocked by this and laughed, saying that he was asking for the impossible, as the difference in strength was too great. Behind the Borden Baron stood Count Gardel, and a weak army like his stood no chance. Ignes asked if he still bore the wounds inflicted by Lord Darrell, and said if anything, he would lend his aid to him. Ramsay was scared by this and said he wanted to think about it. He returned to Hawk, who saw a bag of gold in his hand and asked to share some of the spoils with them. Ramsay, paying him no mind, just walked ahead. He was thinking to himself that Ignes was willing to help, but they were not even neighbors, so how could they assist? He knew that the outcome of the Bartlett versus Borden and Gardel coalition was as obvious as day. But for the happiness of the townsfolk to continue unthreatened, he could not leave any embers of conflict. He thought to himself that he had been supposed to enjoy the slow life while developing the territory, but things were not going smoothly. He came back to his territory and saw goats roaming about. Veronica welcomed him, and he said that things had gotten lively there. She said that her master had sent plenty of livestock and supplies from the expeditions. Ramsay told her that goats were omnivorous and thrived in barren lands, making them a perfect livestock for them. He told Eric to set up the chicken and goat penstock, and Eric told him that he was already working on it. He tried to give more ideas, but he was cut off by Dany, apologizing for putting him on the spot right after his return and telling him to head to the reception room as he had a visitor. Ramsay was surprised by this, and so he headed to the reception room to see a well-dressed man who told Ramsay he had finally made it. Ramsay was confused by this, as the man said he had waited quite a while. Ramsay said he did not believe they had an appointment and asked him who he was. The man apologized for the oversight and introduced himself as Hendry, the legitimate son of Baron Ilma de Dominic. Ramsay heard this, and he knew that Baron Dominic governed the territory adjacent to the south of Bartlett. He wondered why he had come now. He asked him what business Lord Hendry had with him. Hendry said that since they had become neighbors, he thought he would drop by to say hello, but he had heard that Ramsay was out fighting with Lord Hendrick, so he had timed his visit to coincide with his return. He told him that the sofa and table were a gift, so he should feel free to use them. He drank from a glass, saying the wine was intriguing, and asked if it was called kvass. Ramsay was angry that Dany had served Hendry kvass. He sat down and said that hearing Hendry say that made the effort he had put into making it worthwhile. Hendry told him he really liked it and asked if he could teach him how to make it. He had asked others, and they had said that Ramsay was the only one who knew about it. Ramsay told him he could not, as it was an important resource. He thought to himself that there was no way he was just going to share his money-making recipe and asked himself if Hendry was really that naive. Hendry then told him to just sell it to him and asked how much it was. Ramsay told him that he would sell him a cask for 3,000 rubella. He had increased the price and thought to himself it was a bit steep. But Hendry, without any hesitation, said he would take 10 barrels. Ramsay was taken aback by this and said he would prepare and send it over. Hendry then told him that if the time came, then he should visit him. Ramsay asked him if he meant at home and thought to himself, was he closing the distance like a school kid? Hendry told him that as for the date, 4 days from then should be fine. He then took his leave, saying he would be waiting for him. Dany said Hendry was quite a whirlwind of a guy, and Ramsay said that he just wanted a bit of a break. On the 3rd of June, Roger, Ramsay, and Dany went south of Bartlett's territory. Roger was pushing the cart and was tired, asking, "Are we there yet?" Ramsay said it was about time, and it was his first time in the city too. Roger asked Dany to make a switch, but Dany said they had just changed shifts. Roger then asked about a quick break. They took a break, and Ramsay asked them what they would do after delivering. Would they head straight back to the village? Dany denied it, saying that they were heading to the Dominican territory, but then forgot the name of the capital. Roger helped him remember that it was named Dominion Dordom. Dany said he was thinking of checking that out. He and Roger then both asked Ramsay for pocket money. Ramsay thought to himself that it was a reward for carrying the goods and told them he would give it to them, but after they finished the delivery. They were excited and hurried towards the cart. Roger's tiredness was gone, telling Dany to leave the cart to him. Ramsay called them a greedy bunch. After a while, he arrived at Dordom and saw a large concrete building. He also saw quite a long line for the entrance and a guard for inspection. He assumed that a lot of merchants must be coming in and out. After a while, their turn arrived, and Ramsay told the guard that he was from Bartlett territory and had arrived on behalf of Lord Hendry of House Dominic. The guard signaled another guard and apologized to Ramsay for the wait, asking him to hold on a moment. Ramsay was surprised by the sudden shift and thought that the spoiled kid Hendry would be treated more casually. Just then, Hendry arrived, apologizing for the wait and asking if he had waited too long. Ramsay told him not to worry, and Hendry then said they should head to his place right away. Ramsay saw that he was as pushy as always. After a while, they arrived at his mansion, which was near the city. Ramsay saw 2 people waiting outside the gate and asked Hendry who they were. Hendry told him that they were his father and mother. Ramsay then quickly bowed, apologizing for his behavior. Hendry's father told him that there was no need to be formal, and it had been ages since Hendry had brought a friend over. He invited him in while putting a hand on his shoulder. His mom said that they had delicious treats prepared too. Ramsay asked what about the goods, and Hendry said that his family would take care of the rest. One of the workers there bought the goods and gave the money to Dany and Roger. Ramsay saw that this was getting awkward as he could not say they were not friends now. More importantly, he needed to avoid upsetting the neighboring lords. Hendry's father introduced himself as Ilma de Dominic. Ramsay bowed and introduced himself, and Ilma told him not to be so stiff, just to relax and enjoy himself. Ilma cried that Hendry finally had a friend. His mother brought a plate full of food, telling Hendry to take it and share it with his friend, and if he was going out, he should take some pocket money. Hendry was embarrassed by this and told them enough of it. He pushed Ramsay, saying they should go. Ramsay thought to himself that this seemed like a pretty normal family. Hendry showed him his room and told him to hang his coat anywhere. Hendry laughed and said that he had just shown a side he did not want to. Ramsay complimented his room, saying it had all top-notch furniture. Hendry said that they were a family that made their fortune through trade, and his father had bought his title from a struggling royal family, and thanks to that, the traditional aristocrats saw them as enemies. Ramsay thought to himself that his parents were so happy, so they must have lamented his lack of friends. He realized that Hendry was not completely blameless either. Hendry told him to take care of things, at least in front of the family. Ramsay was surprised by this and thought to himself that in noble circles, family interests always got in the way. Nodding along here was easy, but he did not want to do that. He asked Hendry if he could show him around the city. Hendry asked if he meant Dordom, and Ramsay agreed, saying that it was a bustling trade city and they should definitely check it out for the future. He thought to himself that whether he became friends with him was something he would decide while interacting with him. Hendry was happy to hear this and said that no one knew this city better than he did, so he would show him everything. They both went outside and visited different shops and markets. One of the shop owners stopped Hendry, telling him that he had some great wine and asked if he wanted a glass. Hendry denied it, saying he was busy today and said he would come visit him tomorrow. Ramsay saw that the townsfolk really liked him. Hendry then saw a fried bread stall and asked the woman there to make 2 fresh ones. Ramsay saw this and realized that it was going to be hard for him to fit in with this free attitude. They both ate the fried buns, and Hendry asked him if Ramsay's territory did not have a town like this. Ramsay told him that they usually went to Hendo's for trading. Hendry then noticed something and told Ramsay that there was no need to use formal language anymore, and no one was going to scold him for that. Ramsay agreed, and Hendry said that Hendo's was a big city, but they were not losing out in trade. Ramsay laughed and agreed. Just then, a big castle caught his eye. Hendry asked him what was wrong, and Ramsay asked if this church was affiliated with the minor church. Hendry told him that this city had a lot of merchants from the empire, and they even had a place for their prayers prepared. Ramsay then closed his hand in anxiety and asked, "Does it mean that the Dominic family is pro-empire?" He thought to himself that if that was the case, then the Bartlett family would end up as enemies of Duke Ignes, and if they were attacked from the west by Baron Borden and from the south by Count Dominic. Hendry said not really and explained that they maintained neutrality, siding with neither and disdainful of neither. They were a family built on trade, so as long as they paid, anyone was a customer. He laughed and said a disliked nouveau rich like them got no offers from either side. Ramsay told him that he did not need to be so self-deprecating. Hendry then asked if he had found something he wanted. Ramsay then saw a flower that caught his eye. Hendry said that this flower had just come in from the Empire, and it was small but beautiful. Ramsay recognized this flower and knew it was different. It was grown in his grandma's garden in his past life, and he knew this was a potato flower. He told the florist there aggressively that he would take that flower. She told him it would be 5 rubera. Ramsay heard this and realized that they had not realized its value as food. Hendry asked him if he was interested in flowers. Ramsay thought to himself that it was better to stay quiet for now and told Hendry that picking flowers was a gentleman's pastime. Hendry looked at him funny and grabbed him, saying he would take him somewhere really nice. He took him to a mysterious alley, and Ramsay asked him what kind of shop it was and if it was safe down an alley like this. Hendry told him not to worry as he was a regular here. They arrived at the door of the shop where a man stood to guard. The man welcomed Hendry, and Hendry introduced Ramsay to the man. Ramsay told the man that it was nice to meet him and asked what kind of place it was. The man told him that this was a slave shop and he was the owner, Morris. They both entered the shop, and Ramsay felt uneasy there as he had heard rumors about this, but it was his first time inside. He asked Hendry what he usually did here, and Hendry told him that he was looking for someone to play with today, and they would be hired at his house afterwards and get paid too. Hendry left smiling, and Morris told Ramsay that if he liked someone, then to let him know. Ramsay remembered that Veronica also told him that they needed slaves. He thought to himself that he could not let his past life's feelings about buying slaves hold him back. He saw that slaves were of all ages and genders with varying prices. He saw a door and asked Morris what was behind it. Morris asked him if he was interested and if he would like to take a look. Ramsay agreed, and they both entered a giant hall. Morris explained that here they gathered former nobles and priests or their sons and daughters, basically highborn folks. He explained that they were proud and difficult to handle, and not many buyers wanted them, but they were a valuable product that sold for a high price. Ramsay saw this and thought to himself that people like him or even higher nobles were slaves here. Then there was a boy in chains. The meeting in the dungeon was about to take place, and a fate began to unfold.